Head to Knoxville, don't be late. Baker's Live, it's gonna be great. June 5th and 6th, mark your date at Dollywood, we'll celebrate. Meet Baker and more cool friends. Live show magic that never ends. Come to Dollywood, feel the vibe. With great people there, it's gonna be a ride. Rides, fun, and meet and greet. Baker and pals, the crew's so sweet. Get ready for laughs, cheers, and thrills. Knoxville's the place, it's giving chills. Meet Baker and more cool friends. Live show magic that never ends. Come to Dollywood, feel the vibe. With great people there, it's gonna be a ride. June 5th and 6th, don't miss the fun. Meet Baker and friends, it's second to none. Don't miss the fun. Meet Baker and friends, it's second to
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, what if any you are, and Danny was the first one. You are so excited to rewatch this. What if any mistakes will be made? What if any regrets will you have being excited about this? Hey 80s, and Camper, and Esprit, and Carol Sue Skirt, and Red Pentometer, and Helen from Holland. Tommy Beauregard, Out and About with Diane, and Suey, JVH. Number one reason to join our Discord is to hear Baker yell about Plevin's book. No. I have read 10 chapters now. Chapter 11 is called Karen, and I have been told that I need a fresh set of eyes for that. I have totally changed my mind. It is one of the best books I have ever read. It's one of the best research books I have ever read, and it's one of the most credible books I have ever read. The focus on the details, his vast knowledge of police work, all his connections to very important people have turned my mind around, and I will probably have to have Plevin on at some point and say, I'm sorry, Plevin. I treat you like a fool, treat you mean and cruel, but you're awesome. He has enlightened me in a way that will probably make me a Karen Reed did it person.
He has enlightened you, Baker?
Yes, I have now read 10 chapters and I see what there's one or two criticisms can be made. Page 158 and 159 is the same page. Who haven't made that mistake when you turned in a paper to your teacher? Just to kind of pat it, and there's only 2 lines on both pages. It makes it easier to read. You get some time to think when you're just looking at that half blank page. he has a very interesting and thought-provoking writing style. He'll start going into a subject. He'll start talking about colon, and then he will talk about how colon looks. That he's really good at playing. I think it's baseball, and then he will talk about how he is as a kid.
Why?
Then he'll shift to something completely different. Never really getting back to why colon isn't the guy doing it. So you don't get the answers. You have to find the answers. It's like a detective novel. You're reading it and thinking, oh, he's going to feed me. This is why colon is a good guy. No, not in this book. In this book, you have to find the answers yourself. It's an intriguing way of writing. I would say that it's probably the best book I've ever read, and I won't recommend anyone paying for it because money's tight and everything. But still,
would you say it's Edgar Allan Poe-esque? That quality of writing we're dealing with over here?
Edgar Allan Poe when he was found in the streets. It's about that level of, but it's very, very, very thought-inducing. You're sitting there thinking, "Oh, nope." You still have to think, and he has the most important things I've ever seen. He has the YCT rules. These are rules he made up how to solve a case.
Oh,
but again, as the good suspenseful writer, he doesn't tell you the rules. He just plops them in. I smell smoke burning, or so either I've had a thought, or there's a new rule being cooked up in the cottage. Okay, let's put it on the table. YCT rule number 15. Before this, we have had rule number 7 and number 6. Now we're at rule number 15. How many rules are there? Nobody might find out.
Nobody knows.
When you come to a fork in the road, take it. That's rule number 15.
When you come to a fork in the road, take it?
Yes.
Why would you do that in a murder investigation?
It's some of the best writing arithmetics I have ever seen. And he has this seamless transitions between, you were just thinking we're talking about colon.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about the tail light.
Well, that's linked somehow.
Yeah, and then he says, well, let's examine that further. The Alberts had a dog. It's these. You don't see this change coming in many books. Some people have this where they're kind of writing linear books where we're starting at A and ending at C. No. Here we start at D somewhere, gets around number 7, then we'll switch into hashtag and go back to B. I can only recommend more writers picking up this style. It makes it very easy to read.
What'd you tell me you did after the gym?
No, I didn't go to the gym. Instead, I went into my garden and started destroying stuff.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. It's like a choose your own adventure book from back in the day where you got to, swap pages to figure out where you're going next. Remember that?
Maybe Plevin's prose is beyond my reading comprehension. I think so. He spends a whole chapter talking about how it's impossible for the police to make or take part in any cover-up. And then he goes straight into that it's a political hit job on a Soros-backed DA. And that's why Karen could get a talk with Judge Levy there's no really connection why, but he apparently had a talk with that Soros-backed DA, and she didn't say anything, but he knew what she meant. So he's also a part-time mind reader.
Was he at the meeting? Does he have any knowledge of the meeting taking place or the events or topics discussed?
He has all of it because he what was said at the meeting, we don't know, but we can think this is what happened. The good thing is, really Sean of the Gulf is his inside source to the Karen Read campaign. He's mentioned 37 times in the book.
Dang.
With the most Irish name I've ever heard, Seamus O'Malley. Oh, and we did also mention that 30-year ago girlfriend at some point. Why? I don't know. He was talking about how the Irish are drunks, and some of them likes to fight, and some of them likes to dance. Which I don't know what reason but it's nice to learn about the Irish. He's the most racist Irishman against the Irish.
He's proud of it, though. You got to represent for the fam.
Krista, I was trying to write my book report on Plevin. I arrived at page 3, and then I just stopped taking notes. Now I'm just writing in the margin. Nope, no evidence, no proof. Where are we going? What is this transition? How did we get here? It's like talking to the expert.
In book form, even better. Even better.
It could be a romance novel because every man he describes kind of like he wants to rub his body in baby oil.
All the women descriptions you've told me about so far were suboptimal.
Well, one of them is modelly. The other one used to be beautiful in high school. Karen Read apparently is a cold-hearted biatch, and all of them are active girls or sports-minded girls. But every man is he's a broad. Oh no, not Lucky. Lucky has a learning disability.
Oh, does he?
Because he knows cars.
What? Because he knows cars?
He has what we would call a learning disability. He has a big knowledge about cars. I don't know what learning disability makes you know about cars. I don't know much about cars. I know they have most of them 4 wheels.
Most of them. The ones I've seen.
Well, I haven't read the book, so I don't know what Seamus O'Malley finds at the end of the rainbow, but he does tell him that because he's very close to Karen Read, the guy who cried and ended his YouTube channel because Karen Read didn't say happy birthday to him, that
well, he thought it was close.
Well, very close, very close.
Oh God.
Karen Read's minion, former DEA agent Seamus O'Malley, sent me pictures of the tail light. I immediately recognized them as discovery evidence. That had been brought up in court. So he was clearly in touch with Karen, who was selectively leaking material to him, or at least working with someone close to her. And here's what he told me, the tall tale that had an element of the truth.
An element of the truth. What does that mean? A tall tale that had an element of the truth?
Well, it's because all tall tales built on an element of the truth. Kind of like how the Irish, some likes to dance, some likes to brood, but they all drink poutine, of course made by potatoes. I couldn't be as racist against the Swede as he is against his own heritage.
Well, that's how you get away with it, right? If you make fun of your own,
don't do it. I make it fun but I have complained so much that even Marissa, who normally would torment me with everything, says you don't have to read it anymore. Is he trying to color him autistic? I think so. maybe.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Marissa's just trying to save you from stroking out, man. I think that's all it is.
Seats taken.
Having a heart attack mid chapter.
You can't accept the Discord invite. Oh, I'm sorry. It was called Natalie. Oh, Natalie the German is mentioned a few times as well. I don't know much about Natalie the German, but I have to find out. In the Discord, you will land in a welcome spot, and once we assign you a role, you will be able to see anything. So sometimes when we have a big influx, it'll take a little bit time. I'm going to quit the book. I am not a quitter. Mama Baker raised no quitter. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to sue him after.
For pain and suffering.
Yeah. People who got this book free needs their money back.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
It's the worst piece of literature I've ever... And I used to be in teachers' college, and we did get papers back when we were out and pretending to be teachers, and we had to sit and grade by third graders. They made more sense than this idiot does. He is all over the place.
Sounds like he's a Renaissance man. He's covering all the facts, all of them.
There's another word starting with R that I think describes him better.
I kind of want to read the book. I'm not going to lie. You're kind of selling me on it.
Do not get into the rail car. There's only one role available when you arrive in the Discord. Brendan, you have 2 roles. Yeah, that's when you, instead of being at the college, you have to go out to a school and teach for 2 weeks.
Debbie W. has been a member for 10 months. That sounds like the most ADHD thing ever. You don't sound wrong. You don't sound wrong. 10 months, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie. Welcome to the herd.
I want to send it to the expert and have him read it because I think his mind would just read it like a normal book. Because there's some conversations I have with the expert when I'm sitting there thinking, why do I smell toast?
I will say this. When there's been more than once with the expert where I have to stop all of a sudden and say, how did we get here? You know,
yeah.
Where are we? How did this happen? Let's backtrack some.
Hey again, loser. Jessica Thompson, there is no hearing today. We are going back to rewatching the opening statements from the first Karen Reed trial. We are just waffling on a little bit so people had a time to come in. Maybe Plevin is pretending that he is Gif, Coffee Daffy is Siva, and the third grifter is... Oh, I got into a Twitter battle with a new grifter today. Ooh, and he's Dutch. Some of the nicest people I know are from Dutchland. But this guy...
That's Germany. Never mind.
No, that's Deutschland.
That's what I said.
I really like Helen from Holland and Totally Not a Russian Bot and my other Dutch viewers. But this guy... he's the guy who got into a fight about the Delphi case, lost it on his own channel, and then had his mods block 50% of the viewers.
Oh, that's a bad move. That's a bad move. Don't do that, you guys. Don't do that.
He's
look how much hair he had.
Yeah, he's a totally different man.
Oh, his skin looks better here. He's had a rough couple of years, man.
Rough couple? It's a year since we started this trial.
Oh my God. He looks like he's aged like 5 years between this and that.
Yeah. I can't stand 2 types of people, those intolerants of other cultures and the Dutch. Beautiful. There's a Netflix documentary on how great the Netherlands are. It's a cool place. Sweden isn't a cool place, but Pernilla is cool.
Hey, Pernilla.
Hello, Louis Cox.
Drive safe. She's traveling with a couple of...
Yeah, Krista had a bad accident yesterday to try and avoid a speeding car. So that was a little...
Ooh.
Krista.
Don't do... Positive vibes. Hope everything's okay.
Yeah, her not her suspension. You know the part that goes under from wheel to wheel.
The axle
Yeah,
or the
we call
drive
it something.
shaft?
Well, we call the entire area something, but it looks like that broke off. So,
Chassis?
can we go to IKEA when? If you have one, I'll gladly go with you, and I will then tell your wife that I don't know where you are, and she can go and find you.
He'll be lost in there forever.
Poutine is an Irish moonshine. It's spelled Poitin, I think. Hey, Jen Boogie.
I'd never heard of the alcohol either. Poutine is that
It's
like
moonshine.
French fries and cheese and gravy, and they eat it. It sounds like it's healthy. That's what it sounds like.
Well, it's made of potatoes, like everything Irish people like.
I don't think that was by choice, mostly, man.
Oh no, but the reason why Mrs. O'Keefe looks like she looks, I think it's her he describes that way, is because of generations of starvation.
What?
Yeah, because the Irish and the starvation, the famines, the famines that made them sail to America. Apparently, the Irish looks a certain way because of the starvations.
I thought it was because of the inbreeding.
Don't.
Good morning. So as Ron was telling you, this is one of the two opportunities that I would
loud
like
noises.
to address. The first of which right now, essentially what I'm going to attempt to do, and I know you heard over the course of the impairment process a number of different witnesses that were listed out as far as potential witnesses in this case. So what my intent here is to provide as much of a roadmap as I can through those waters and help you to navigate sort of who these people are and what relation they have to this case. We start with John O'Keefe. John O'Keefe grew up in Braintree. He was 46 years old when he passed. He was the son of John O'Keefe Jr. and Margaret or Peggy O'Keefe. He was a brother to Paul O'Keefe and to his sister Kristen Furbush. Kristen was married, and so John's brother-in-law was a man named Stephen Furbush, and they had two children who were very young in 2013. Now in 2013, Kristen unfortunately, tragically passed away, succumbing to cancer in November of 2013. Within months of that, Mr. O'Keefe's brother-in-law and Kristen's husband, Stephen, passed away as well. Now, initially, when John O'Keefe's sister passed away, sort of the initial plan for that situation was that John O'Keefe was going to move in with Stephen Furbush and the kids and assist as far as raising them. And then when Stephen passed away a few months after his wife, before those plans could be finalized, John O'Keefe then moved in with his niece and nephew and assumed the parental role and assumed legal guardianship with respect to both of those children. Now, he was assisted in this by a great number of people within the town of Canton where the Furbushes lived and where John moved into.
This part, almost word for word, was copied into Plevin's book.
The home with the two children there. There were other parents within the neighborhood, other parents within the children's age group. You'll hear from a number of them over the course of this trial, but they include Mrs. Carrie Roberts and Mrs. Jennifer McKay. They helped Mr. O'Keefe out during those initial stages and during the time that he assumed this role. He also got help from his work. John O'Keefe was a proud member of the Boston Police Department, had been for many years. He had been a patrolman prior to moving in with the children and assuming this sort of role. Boston Police Department helped him greatly as far as positioning him to more of a desk role, working in the sex offender unit. with more regular hours to sort of assimilate himself to this new life and this new role that he receives with his children. Initially, John O'Keefe lived in the house with the kids. However, in 2018, they moved into a new home, sort of a new home that they could have as their own. That home is located also within the town of Canton, sort of on the Stoughton side of Canton.
His work has been narrated in multiple languages. That means that someone has made fun of it in many languages. No, it's because Plevin wrote a book once and then he hired a narrator. But he didn't feel, you'll get through that if you ever read his book. He talks about it in the prologue. And in one of the many chapters where he goes back to talk about his life and the Lizzie Borden case. Why? That's for you to find out. At some point, we shift from talking about third-party culprits to Lizzie Borden killed her dad. He still believes he did it, but he doesn't believe the evidence shows it. Yeah, well, that's because you're an idiot. Yeah, Hurricane Bev is rolling through. You should really turn off her mic.
That was intense.
Yeah, she constantly.
At One Meadows Avenue.
So far, no lies detected, but yes, spot the lie.
John O'Keefe raised these children, assuming guardianship for them for about 8 years. His niece, who was the elder of the two, was about 14 at the time that John O'Keefe died, and his nephew was about 11 years old at the time that John O'Keefe died. January 28th, 2022 was a relatively typical day. It was a Friday going into a Saturday.
Plevin claims it's a Saturday, but again.
Of January 29th. Sort of typical in the sense of most sort of suburban parents. There were a lot of activities, weekend sports, practices, games, things of that nature that the O'Keefe and Furbush family had to look forward to. One little difference.
Yes. Yes, it's both.
Difference when it came to that particular day of January 28th and the 29th is the weather. So there had been predicted, and there was going to be a snowstorm, an insignificant one. A blizzard essentially was coming in overnight that Friday and Saturday, lasting through most of the day on Saturday the 29th. And as a result of that, most of those sort of typical, weekend routine activities that would keep most people, including those within the town, busy, had been canceled ahead of time. Everybody knew what was coming. Everybody knew essentially you weren't going to leave your house all that much the following day. Now, also on January 28th, Mr. O'Keefe had received some news in respect to his niece. So his niece and her best friend were in 8th grade at the time, going to high school in the fall of 2022. They both applied to a private school called Bishop, and they both found out on the 28th that they had been accepted to that school.
You know what? Sorry. You know what one of the key characteristics of spotting a liar are? They give you a ridiculous amount of unnecessary information.
Yes.
They go into details and side quests to kind of throw off the track. That's exactly what this dude's doing. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's the, as I say, it's the good old look at all the evidence.
Yeah.
But what does the evidence show? Just look at it. Look at all the evidence I have. Imagine if Johnny Cochran started off with the evidence will show you that O.J. Simpson played football and lived in a house. -1 point off the bat.
No kidding.
Yeah. No kidding. This entire... And again, this is having... To me, it's having the same effect as it's having on Eddie Mack. You're getting away from what you're there for. You're there to paint Karen Reed as an evil woman who unalived a guy. I know you want to talk the heartstrings and talk about the kids, but you don't have to talk about houses. You don't have to talk about all of this filler. And it's not even that long. It's 38 minutes long. So it's not like he needs to fill an hour of talk.
Well, he has to. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, lollygagging. Yeah, that's what we called it.
as well as her father, a gentleman by the name of Michael Camerano, who's both he and his wife, Catherine Camerano, were friendly with John O'Keefe. They had children around the same age.
We need to come up with a letter grade for each side. Well,
Letter grade?
we can only put up 4 different. Our polls can't be more than 4 things, so I don't know. We will watch. We'll watch Lally's statement, and then we will ask you to objectively look at it, not just because you hate him, but was it good? Was it bad? Was it something? Well, find 4 different categories, and then we can vote on it while we watch the defense, and then we can grade the defense after, and try and keep an open mind if it would work if you were on the jury. We are burdened by, we have been through this trial before, but if this was the first time you heard it, is this convincing? Is this making you go to Fairview 34 that night, picturing an argument? Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but picturing an argument between these two and Karen flying into a hysterical rage because, as someone describes her, she's a boy girl who can hold her liquor because she is day drinking vodka and like to hang out in bars and have a lot of male friends, which I think is a euphemism for being a hoe bag. But it's Plevin's words, not mine.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, no. We are at 7 jurors, so it's going faster than expected, but still, we won't start this week. Well, I can get you the Danish citizenship test if you want it. We can do that on the street and see how many of you can pass it. Zero.
I'm gonna take a snowstorm count. I'm gonna keep track of how many times he mentions a snowstorm. So far, it's been 1, sort of. I should count it as 2 because then he said there was a blizzard rolling in, so I'm gonna count that as 2. I'm gonna count it as 2.
Jessica Thomas, as it says, openings trial 1. Marissa did the same. You have to change your headline. And I was like, why? Because people are going to watch it in 40 minutes. Yeah. Opening statements, trial 1. Oh.
Trial 1. Trial 1. 1.0.
Yeah. No bats in football, minus 1 point for Brandon. Oh, no football in football. So minus 1 point to the NFL.
What do you call it? If it's not a
handball.
Football? Handball?
There's one guy with 2 guys using their feet. The kicker and the punter.
Everybody uses their feet.
Not to play the ball.
Well, they spend a lot of time.
You can't argue. It's a totally correct statement.
Handball. Ridiculous.
I play by the last Boy Scout rules. That's such a cool scene in the rain where he just...
I have no idea what that is.
You never seen The Last Boy Scout?
I don't think so.
Sorry, Valhalla had to go.
I have to go watch this movie immediately. The Last Boy Scout.
You realize we literally call it football because the ball is a foot long, right? No, you call it football because it was probably the Irish who liked their poutine and being drunk who came up with the game. I have that from a credible source that Seamus O'Malley was the one who invented the game in Florida.
I don't think that's true.
Well, Plevin says so. Please revisit the Arca testimony. I fear we don't see them again in trial 2. We will see them again.
Could you? They couldn't possibly.
No.
They couldn't possibly exclude those witnesses. There's no way. There's no way.
Well, I love that in the last motion they wrote, now that you have changed the rules so everyone can opine about injuries, there's no reason to exclude our witnesses. Her double standards.
Ages, as both John's niece and his nephew, and they had come over to their house on Meadows Ave that evening to celebrate the girls getting into that school. The nephew of John, the 11-year-old, was sleeping over a friend's house that night. He left that home sometime around 7 p.m. or so, got picked up and went to sleep over at his friend's house. John O'Keefe and Michael Camerano then decided to travel out to a local establishment on Washington Street called C.F. McCarthy's Bar and Restaurant. You're going to hear testimony, and you're going to see surveillance video, and you're going to see receipts and all kinds of things from a variety of different establishments, all sort of located within Camden Center along that strip in Washington Street. Now, they get Mr. O'Keefe and Mr. Camerano, leave the girls at home. They then go to C.F. McCarthy's, arriving there sometime between 7:30 and 8 p.m. They eventually cajole another friend of theirs, Mr. Kurt Roberts, to come out to the bar and join them as well. And there's some other people that are located within the bar, including a Mr. James Sullivan, who we hear from, who was present at the bar that night as well. Eventually, the defendant, Karen Reed, joins them at this establishment, C.F. McCarthy's, sometime just before 9 p.m. Now, John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had met sometime in 2004. They had dated briefly during that time and reconnected sometime around March of 2020, around the time of the COVID-19 sort of pandemic shutdown. They had started dating around that time period, or reconnected during that time period, and the defendant had stayed at the house in Canton several nights.
No, it's opening statements, trial 1. As the title says.
First try.
Week she had helped out.
I should put up a penalty, but people doesn't read the penalty.
In the month or so leading up to Mr. O'Keefe's death, the relationship soured. You will see text messages between Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed to that effect. You will hear testimony from the children, from John's niece and nephew in regard to...
We didn't see any text messages that their relationship stopped. We saw text messages where she was asking, "Where are we going with this?" And he was kind of a dirtbag.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's look at Brandon trying to be mod of the year.
Ooh, look at you, Lesko. Look at you.
Well, but he never shows us that evidence.
No, he's drawing a conclusion based on a unfinished argument, for lack of a better term.
But yeah, because the text messages, and that's another thing. Plevin claims that it's Karen who pressures John that she wants to go drinking with them. It's him begging her to come and drink with him and stay at his house for the weekend.
Yeah.
Things they observe within that relationship, and you'll hear testimony from other individuals as far as their observations or things that they heard.
At this point, yes. I looked around on the interwebs today. A lot of people, not the normal free can read types, a lot of people are saying this looks so bad. There's so much negativity around this, and the DA's office should be ashamed to try this case again. Everyone is talking about how bad it is.
I've said that since the beginning.
Well, we all said that she never should have been charged. I could swing it for manslaughter and say, well, he might have been hit, and I think they could actually have won that case. Even because we know from the witnesses they didn't care about the evidence about his injuries or the damage to the car. They were just looking at her and saying she has an angry face and she was drinking. So
the Arca guys are just a distraction bought by possibly Turtle Boy.
To be fair, Bev didn't rule on what could come in pre-trial, just blocked stuff and punted other stuff. Yeah. Well, she did at the first trial, and she hasn't done it this time, so I think I should know what this is. There's Lollipop, and I watched this all before Deja Vu. Well, time makes you forget. Yeah, they have taken enough of her money and time away and her life, because look at Karen Reed. We're talking about how Lally looks. She looks 5 years older now as well.
I would. She's literally fighting for her life against the system that's doing everything they can to put her in prison under, at the very least, very, very unlikely scenario. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But you can tell she's lost weight, a lot of weight, since the first trial began.
I'm sure,
and she wasn't big to begin with.
No, I'm sure she's stressed out. You know, she's spending all of her parents' money. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Turning to January 29th, 2022. Just after 6 a.m., the Canton Police Department receives a 911 call from a woman reporting a male party, subsequently identified as John O'Keefe, found in the snow outside a residence at 34 Fairview Road. At the time, as I mentioned, the blizzards that had been predicted was occurring, heavy snow, temperatures in the teens, wind bustling around. Officer Stephen Saraf and Officer Stephen Mullaney of the Canton Police were dispatched along with Canton Fire and EMS, and you'll hear from them in regard to their response and what they observed on scene. In particular, with Officer Saraf,
yesterday's tally was 7 jurors found.
Have as an exhibit anticipates a cruiser camera video from his cruiser detailing or memorializing sort of his response in the darkness, in the blizzard type conditions as he's driving from the Canton Police.
Do we, and I know there's someone in chat who remembers better than me and who is more closely to the Canton area. Was Canton ever hit by a blizzard? Because what I saw on that cruiser cam is what we call heavy snow. I would be driving in that weather. It wasn't anywhere near enough that I wouldn't go out driving. And as I understand, that area of America gets snow.
A lot of it. A whole lot of it.
It's
I've already like phased out his voice. I wasn't paying attention to any of the last like 3 minutes of him talking. This is terrible. This is going to be such a painful stream. Oh my God, I'm sorry. My counters go off already, I'm sure.
Well, we're only 28 minutes from the end. And then he memorializes the witness's statement on camera. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, funny how that. To us on the East Coast, that was a snowstorm. Yeah, it's a snowstorm. It's not a blizzard. A blizzard is where the wind is howling.
Conditions.
You can't go out. Your door is blocked. Yeah, as Marissa says, the blizzard isn't snow, it's wind with snow, but it wasn't that bad. What we saw on the camera, you could drive in that weather, and they were plowing the roads. It's not like
it was clear enough that what the hell, Jill Daniels was able to deliver donuts to her nephew. Yeah. It was that clear, at least.
TB's accuser just got charged with threatening to unalive a woman and her children. Arraignment at 4:30 is 4:30 at 30th of April in
April 30th. Attleboro.
Yeah, it's Massachusetts. They probably pronounce it Manchester.
Oh,
thank you so much, Greg. Yeah, she went on a stream and yelled that she was gonna come and unalive someone, and was.
You can't do that. You can't do that, lady.
Well, it's more than a month ago, so apparently you can do it for some time before you'll be charged. Medina, the weather conditions, were they bad? She must know. She lives in a country that has snow 12 months a year. Well, maybe 11. A blizzard is officially defined by the National Weather Service as a storm with sustained winds and frequent gusts of 35 miles per hour or greater, and considered falling or blowing snow that reduces visibility to less than a quarter mile for 3 hours and more. And northeastern, which it was definitely not. Weather was so bad that they all.
Nor'easter. Yeah.
Weather was so bad they all drank and drove. Snowstorm. Dunkin' was open. Well, Dunkin' apparently is opened through everything.
It's no Waffle House. Let's calm down on that. All right.
But if you live at the Northeast or the Midwest, the snow doesn't really slow you down too much. No, that's the thing, because we don't get much snow. But what I saw on that road, you have your winter tires on. You put your winter tires on in November, ride on them till April, and you'll just lower your speed. You will get around in weather. I could understand it again if it had been blowing. And again, John's body was found with 2 inches of snow on it. So this massive, and I just thought that the snowfall on the day was nowhere near what they expected it to be.
I don't recall. I guess we've got the weather guy coming up in this trial. Maybe
Val would know, growing up on the south side of Chicago, at least know its impact on the trajectory on your 9mm. Dunkin' Donuts sucks. I don't think I ever had anything from Dunkin' Donuts.
They used to have like a shake thing that I thought was pretty good.
They're having a heat wave in Finland, 18 Celsius for 2 days straight. Tomorrow it should be wind from the north again, so back to the ice age. Yeah.
What's 18 Celsius in real temperatures?
Just around 60.
Oh, that's nice. It was 84 yesterday, 84 Fahrenheit yesterday. It's going to be 82 today.
Yeah. Winter all season tires. Yeah, I ride all season tires because we get so little snow that I don't care for. But yeah, I think it's 2 inches under him, not on him. But they also said he's covered by a slight dusting. By the end of Saturday night, it was a lot of snow, but they tried to paint it as they had a foot at 6 a.m., which they didn't. Yeah, that's the thing, because we also see the conditions when he drives up there. And yes, it's snowing, but snow makes it look worse. If you were in the car, it wouldn't be as bad, because it's all the whiteout on the camera that makes it look that bad, with your headlights hitting the snow. And you can clearly see, because I can remember when we were watching the cruiser cam, Lally was talking about, and then all of a sudden, out of the snow, you saw these people. You could clearly see the car up the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Duncan actually has a good SEC, Swiss X salmon, I don't know.
Sausage, egg, and cheese on a croissant. Got it.
Oh, that and a jelly donut will prepare you for any weather conditions on your way to the bar.
To the bar.
If you're rear-wheel drive, you need snow tires, especially if your regular or all season is wider, or a friend who likes pushing stuff. Well, most cars in Denmark is front-wheel drive, so again, I'm used to it. Yes, back in, also in the 70s, around 78, 79, and 80, because my dad used to go out and when they had to bring people to the hospital, instead of an ambulance, they used the what is called M113, the old armored personnel carrier.
Cool.
So they had to ride in those because it was so much snow.
Did it have tracks? Is that why they used them?
Yeah, it's the one you used in Vietnam and until you got your newer APCs. Cool. Well, sorry.
Station where he was located when he received the call to 34 Fairview Road. When they arrived there, they observed three females sort of off to the left side of the property. And when I say the left side of the property, I mean if you're standing out in the street facing 34 Fairview Road off to the...
If you're driving a car that's powered by gas, it's most likely a Fiat 500. And if you're driving an electric, it's most likely the Mark E from Ford, their Mustang electrical.
They make an electric.
The left side of the...
I showed it on screen to you 2 days ago.
Huh.
And you yelled,
Was I
that's not a
impressed?
Mustang.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now. Yeah, that wasn't a Mustang. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't a Mustang.
Yeah.
property. There's a flagpole, there's a fire
That's why I
hydrant.
didn't remember it.
There's some bushes. That is where Mr. O'Keefe is located. To the right side of the property is sort of the driveway and the mailbox and other things that you'll become familiar with through photographic evidence and other means through the course of this trial. The three females that the officers observed there were then identified as the defendant, Karen Reed, Mrs. Jennifer McCabe, who had received a phone call earlier in the morning from the defendant, as well as Mrs. Kerry Roberts, who had also received a phone call early that morning from the defendant. The several firefighters from the Canton Fire Department you'll hear from in regard to their observations of injuries, abrasions, and lacerations to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe. You'll hear their testimony in regard to...
Well, not snowy roads, but you have to take a slippery traction. They'll pour water on the road, and then you'll have to maneuver on that one. That's a fun day, and you have to do it when you get a truck license as well.
Ooh.
I slammed. You know, you have those straps. Did you get a truck license in the army?
Like Humvees and stuff? Yeah.
No, a truck, a freight carrier, one of the big
No.
ones.
No.
Oh, when you drive on that slippery course thing, they have straps on it because you will maneuver and you can do the wishbone effect. So I was doing, and they might have told us you're not allowed to smoke in the vehicles, but we went down behind some bushes and you can get half a cigarette down there. And then I did where you had to do the slalom, and I might have hit it a little hard and was throwing out a cigarette while I was one-handing it, and I just crapped it. So I was halfway out the window, and he just, next time, close the window, you idiot, stop smoking. Yes, sir.
Yikes. Oh,
Defense
imagine
should
that,
have
a soldier
called-
sneaking a cigarette. What a novel concept. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
Never happened in the military before when
Never.
I did it.
You
Defense
know,
should
there's
have
a
called
special
local.
way- Go ahead, my bad.
Defense should have called local beloved Boston weatherman Don Kent to testify on ground hardness. He's been 6 feet under for over 20 years. Well, he would have personalized knowledge.
That's true. Oh. Well, that's good, I guess.
You don't have slippery course driving.
No.
Oh.
Sounds fun.
It is fun. You have to slalom, and you have to go around corners and feel and he will. You know, they have that extra set of pedals, so he will tap the brake so you lose your ass, and it's fun. It's super fun.
It sounds like a good time.
Thank you, Meat Hook.
swelling of his eyes and other injuries that he observed. They observed redness from the cold that he had been lying out in for some time. You'll hear the testimony from these firefighters: Timothy Nuttall, Anthony Formati, Matthew Kelly, Francis Walsh, Katie McLaughlin, and Greg Woodbury. And at least from 3 of those firefighters, you'll hear testimony anticipates detailing statements that the defendant made to them when they had asked about the origination of some of those injuries. The defendant stated repeatedly, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him." Mr. O'Keefe was then taken from the front lawn onto what they call a scoop stretcher. As he's doing that, I anticipate you'll hear Ms. Roberts' testimony that despite the 6 inches of snow approximately that was on top of Mr. O'Keefe's body and the snow throughout the roadway, front yard, everywhere around where he was, there was grass underneath Mr. O'Keefe, where his cell phone was located underneath his body as he lay on that front lawn. He was then transported by firefighters Kelly, Flamati, and others.
6 inches.
That's what he said, right? He said 6 inches of snow on the body?
Yeah. 6 inches of snow on his body, and everyone else will testify he had a light dusting of snow on him.
I thought I was hearing shit.
Yeah. No, that's why it's fun to go back and rewatch, because not Medina, Wicked says all 3 of them were proven wrong on cross-examination. Well, all 3 of them had a very hard time remembering when they heard it, and none of them heard it at the same time, even though they were right next to each other. And provably, Miss Cross herself, the holier than thou, the friendless Carrie McLaughlin, or whatever her name is, should have been on camera would have been on the camera where we see a police officer standing right in front of Karen when she allegedly said it. And that police officer, because that is what police officer says, thought, nah, I'm not going to note that. Why would that ever come back and be useful in the case? He's such a liar. Karen flipped him over to do CPR, so how is there 6 inches on top? That's another problem, because, again, Jen says we just flipped him over. And that's a big old problem, because they're going to have an expert come in and testify he hit the back of his head on the ground and died. Well, passed out.
Even if he had 2 inches of snow covering his body, they wouldn't know which way he was laying. Face down, face up. They would have had to clear snow off or check him in some, you wouldn't know where his injuries were right away. You wouldn't know what to do without clearing off some snow at the very least. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we also do these. We do it at the Hinterbahn, where we have to avoid things. They will have things coming out, so you have to. It's fun.
And how are you 16 like we are when you get your driver's license?
No, well, they just started that you can take it at 17, but you have to have and I was really mad about this, a non-drunk co-driver who is past 25 next to you, but you can drive alone when you're 18.
Okay.
And I like that better, so we know how to hold our liquor before we know how to drive our car. That's probably smarter than all the teens thinking, wait, I can drink 3 Bud Lights and drive a car.
You know how to hold your liquor by 18?
Well, most of us start when we are 13, so.
Jesus.
I was at a nightclub when I was 13 the first time.
That's
we
crazy.
Snuck in.
I think I don't remember. I think there was a 16 and up club that I went to one time.
Yeah, we have those. Where my kids live, they have those. You have to leave at 12, but they all just stay.
As well as the ambulance being driven by firefighter McLaughlin to the Good Samaritan Medical Center. Once there were some observations, and you'll hear testimony from Dr. Justin Rice from that facility as far as observations consistent with what I anticipate you'll hear from those firefighters. But then there is a certain warming procedure that they go through trying to bring his body temperature up. Because when Mr. O'Keefe arrives at the Good Samaritan Medical Center, his body temperature is 80. And after those resuscitative efforts prove unsuccessful, Mr. O'Keefe is eventually pronounced by Dr. Rice at approximately 7:50 in the morning. Shortly after that, when the defendant is then being driven away from the scene by Ms. Roberts, who is now going to go pick up Mr. and Mrs. O'Keefe, John O'Keefe's parents in Braintree, and then bring them to the Good Samaritan Medical Center in Brockton, the defendant makes some statements of self-harm. As a result of that, she's then transported to the Good Samaritan Medical Center as well by 2 firefighters named Daniel Whitley and Jason Becker. And amongst the statements that they gained from the defendant as they're having a conversation with her in regard to that, in regard to a treatment and diagnosis, she indicates that the last that she saw Mr. O'Keefe, they had gotten into an argument before he had gotten out of the car in front of Fairview Road. Now, you'll also hear testimony from some of the other first responding officers from the Canton Police Department, including Lieutenant Paul Gallagher, Sergeant Sean Good, and Sergeant Michael Lenk, in regard to their initial response, their observations, people that they spoke to, where they went, and their ability to recover within these blizzard conditions that are still ongoing, certain pieces of evidence that they located in around the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found. We'll also hear from Lieutenant Charles Ray of the Canton Police Department, who was tasked with, at this point in time, the Canton Police were unaware that the nephew was over at sleepover.
Well, they kind of allude to that it's because of the heating procedure but I've been thinking about that because Plevin mentioned it in his book as well. There would still be telltale signs because what hypothermia and frostbite is dead tissue.
Sort of. Hypothermia isn't dead tissue. Hypothermia
but frostbite is dead tissue.
Yes.
And when you get hypothermia, that's what I wanted to say. Your body shuts down everything it doesn't need to try and preserve your core temperature to get your brain hot and your lungs and heart, because that's important.
Which is often why you get frostbite, because it sucks all the blood to the core, and your fingertips are the first to go, and your toes.
That's why I think is it called Ralph Fiennes, the British guy who walked to the South Pole. He had to saw off his own toes because he got frostbite in him. But it's not a problem. Well, it is a problem, but again, you don't feel it. It's dead.
Right.
Because your extremities will lose blood flow because your capillaries shut down and forces the blood into the core to try and keep you alive. That's why you start shaking as well, to try and heat up the system. If that doesn't work, hypothermia will set in and you'll pass out. But it's the way for the body to try and say, we're going to preserve as much energy as possible to keep your mind, your brain and your heart alive.
Yeah, the heart and brain are way more important than the fingertips.
So if he had hypothermia, which is indicated on his not thoracic spine, that's not what I want to say. Inside his body, there's two places that indicates hypothermia. He should have beginning frostbite in his fingers and his toes because he didn't have any cover on those, which would indicate, or which would be notable in the tissue. Again, if I understood my cold can kill education when I was in the Navy. Cold can kill. No.
I'm pretty sure we talked about that the first time around, too. I'm pretty sure I was really upset about it.
I remember at the start of this trial just thinking, so what? He could have gotten beaten by a homeless person. He could have fallen and gotten robbed. Who did this to him and how? Yeah, because, again, it doesn't line up with he's getting hit by a 6,000-pound moving object. And, it doesn't leave any marks. Who, if any, have ever heard about leaving marks when getting hit by 6,000 pounds?
There's going to be a mark or two.
Yes, it made me think, but not in the way he wanted me to do. Yeah, not medical advice. Don't go out there.
Are aware that Mr. Camerano had come over to the residence on Meadows Ave and picked up a niece and bringing her back to his house as she was left unattended when the defendant left to go looking for Mr. O'Keefe. So unaware of that, they go do a well-being check at approximately 8:22 in the morning. And they also have cruiser camera video attached to their cruiser. And you'll see that video and when they pull into the driveway at Meadows Ave, approximately 8:22 in the morning, they pull in directly behind where eventually you'll hear Ms. McCabe left the defendant's vehicle after driving it from her house to Meadows Ave in search of Mr. O'Keefe. And you'll have that footage, and you'll be able to see the back of the defendant's vehicle, specifically the right rear taillight of that vehicle. Now, you'll also hear testimony, as I mentioned, from the Cameranos, from Mr. Roberts, from Mr. Sowell. They were all present with the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe at C.F. McCarthy's. You'll hear testimony from a number of other individuals who were at the waterfall. The waterfall is a bar located across the street, essentially, from C.F. McCarthy's on Washington Street in Canton Center, and somewhere that Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant went after leaving C.F. McCarthy's at approximately 11 p.m. or so. Now, from that establishment, you'll hear from Rebecca Traers, who was working as a bartender at the waterfall that evening. You'll hear from a couple named Nicholas and Karina Kolokaitis, who were friends of friends, who had known Mr. O'Keefe through their daughter around the same age as Mr. O'Keefe and niece. Mrs. Kolokaitis had some conversation with the defendant that evening, as well as herself and Mrs. McCabe at the waterfall. She left around the same time as they did. She parked on Washington Street around the same area as Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed did, specifically in Ms. Reed's car.
It's to not prejudice the jury against her, because an officer could carry more emotional that, oh, you killed a police officer, so that's why they called him Mr. instead of police officers.
She also ruled that they couldn't have presence in the courtroom, right? Isn't that one of the rulings? Cops
they couldn't
show up in uniform.
carry. I think they couldn't carry anything police related, but I saw people with the like
the badges,
pins.
Yeah.
When one misplaces something obvious, it's not where it's supposed to be. You start with the last place you had it. Well, there's a reasonable explanation. They didn't have probable grounds to have a search warrant. No, you could just have asked Brian Albert, said, the lady said she was here last night. Can we just have a look around? And then he could say no. And then they can say, oh, we're going to call a judge and ask for, because then he would become a likely suspect.
Well, he should have been a...
And she observed Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant walking toward the defendant's vehicle, and specifically the defendant walking towards the driver's side of the vehicle. Now, you'll hear testimony from a Christopher and Julie Albert, who were people who were at one point neighbors of Mr. O'Keefe. They knew him well from being neighbors of him.
What temperature do you think is considered as hypothermia? It's
not that low.
It's not a temperature per se. It's when the body temperature, well, if you want to say what body temperature, it's below 35 degrees Celsius, 93.5 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I was going to say it's only a few degrees. It's not very much.
Yeah, it's I don't know what's your ours is 37.5 is where, so 37.5 Celsius is where our normal temperature is.
98.6, I think, is ours.
Yeah, so like 3-4 degrees off, and you will enter a state of hypothermia.
Yeah, it'll be bad news.
95. Yeah.
It's not that much. Doesn't take a whole lot for your body to start freaking out real hard.
I got hypothermia doing water rescues after Hurricane Harvey, and it was very hot that day. Water is one of the best conduits to remove. That's why if you fall in the water, a lot of people will think, I have to keep moving to keep my body heat up, because that's what you do on land. Actually, you need to preserve as much by making the water loss as much as possible. Interesting. Oh, hey, Jamie. Yeah, I'm sorry Val's here today. She doesn't want to come on.
Christopher Albert owns a pizza shop, also located within that Cannon Center area. Mr. O'Keefe, earlier in the day of the 28th, had been into that pizza shop along with his nephew to get his nephew a slice. Christopher Albert and Mr. O'Keefe had some conversation regarding what they were doing that night, and it's Christopher Albert who actually texts Mr. O'Keefe and indicates that they're over at the waterfall and that he should come over shortly before Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant make their way from C.F. McCarthy's home. Now, Christopher Albert left directly from the waterfall and went home. He lives sort of walking distance away from them. His wife, Julie Albert, had left earlier in the evening. There was a band playing at the waterfall that night. Mrs. Julie Albert started to get a migraine, and she left before most of the group. Included within that group, and sort of how they came to the waterfall, the Albert family in particular, Julie Albert went there along with her sister-in-law, Nicole Albert, as well as her niece, Caitlin Albert, her niece's boyfriend, and Mr.
Well, I normally say if I'm above 37 and a half, that's when I have a fever. But it might be 37. I don't, but I'm a hot guy.
Morris, and they had dinner at the White.
Baby.
Yes, Chris is Colin's father.
Fall earlier in that evening. Now, Nicole Albert lives at 34 Fairview Road. She has a husband named Brian Albert, who's also a Boston police officer. Brian Albert had gone with a friend of his, who's also in law enforcement, a man named Brian Higgins, and they had gone separately, but had come home together from a funeral for a fallen police officer in New York City. Came home early to sort of beat the weather, and eventually they meet up with Brian Albert's family at the waterfall. Now, Tristan Morris, who was Caitlin Albert's boyfriend, had left the waterfall at some point in the evening. He then returns later to the residence on Fairview Road and picks up Caitlin Albert, brings her home. All of this is in relation to Brian Albert and Nicole Albert's son, Brian Albert Jr., whose birthday was coming up the following day, the day of the snowstorm on the 29th. So he had been back at the house at 34 Fairview while his family was out at the waterfall. He had a number of friends that had come over that evening to celebrate his birthday with him. Now, among those friends was two individuals named Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel, and they were at the residence at 34 Fairview for a good portion. Now, those individuals from the waterfall that leave and then come.
That to me is one of the most interesting parts. Why did Chris Albert, who didn't know John,
I wrote that down too, y'all.
Yeah, they will tell you they were the closest of friends. They were longtime friends from down the road, even though they called him Mr. Nepperknacker, and Colin might be an asshole to him. He went and had a pizza, and that's the first time Chris gets his phone number. And then he sends him a text at 10 o'clock, 9:30, something later that night saying, "We're at the waterfall. What up, y'all?" And they walk over there. To me, that seems too much of a coincidence that it just happened that way. That day he went out, had a pizza with his nephew, and Chris asked for his phone number. To me, it just seems weird. Coincidence.
234 Fairview.
I can see
they do so.
he's like running into a buddy and be like, "Hey man, we're gonna party tonight. You want to come with?" I could see that part. I guess it also.
How many
seems
of
a
your
little-
buddies don't you have any contacts to?
Not very many at all.
If I could see if Brandon and you met each other at the Mouse Ear, and you said, "Oh my God, you're Brandon," and he said, "Shh, there's a reason I have the trench coat on," and you said, "Well, it's only 1 p.m. I'm going out having some beers tonight. You want to hang?" And he says, "Oh, sure. Can I get your cell number?" I could see that because you and Brandon doesn't see each other. This is people who live down the road and are the bestest friends for years. They looked after his house. Remember, that's why they took the pictures with the Canton salute. They were the bestest of friends.
You would definitely should have had his phone number by then, for sure.
This is like you and Wallstrom not having any ways to contact each other.
Yeah, that's just dumb. That's just dumb.
It doesn't make any sense that the bestest of friends, but didn't have his number.
That's just dumb.
Sometime shortly after midnight. Shortly after midnight is when it starts to snow. Flurries are starting to come down. Snow is starting to stick to some degree to the road, to the front.
Exactly. And that's another thing that, taken out of context, her saying, "Are you sure we're welcome?" seems like, oh, she didn't like these people. But John didn't know them. He didn't know Brian Albert, even though both of them were at Boston CP, or whatever it's called, PC, Boston Police. He didn't know him. He didn't know Chris Albert. he just talked to him that day and said, "Hey, yeah, we got a big snowstorm coming in. We might be a couple of guys. You might know a few of them. One of them is a cop from Boston, and if you're out, I heard your daughter got in at that prestigious school. So if you're out having a few brewskis, we'll be at the waterfall later. Should I text you?" That could totally make sense. She says, "Are you sure we're welcome?" It's not like they ever been drinking before. They claim that she knows Brian Higgins from, they used to drink at some bar. That's where John and Higgins got to know each other. But he didn't know any of the other people. So, yeah. Is it true as juror you cannot take notes? I believe in Bev's courtroom you can take notes.
I believe so, because I think I remember her telling them they had to leave their notebooks there.
Yeah. Maybe I've done that as a young buck, but as an adult, it's weird. To have a trench coat on? Yeah, because you can't feel the traction.
Long, grassy areas around the town. Now, from that group, the group that goes back is obviously Brian Albert and Nicole Albert as they live there. Caitlin Albert, because it's her parents and her boyfriend is picking her up, as well as Jennifer McCabe, who is Nicole Albert's sister, and her husband Matthew McCabe. They go back to that, and there's an open invitation to essentially anybody that's there. John O'Keefe takes them up on that. There are certain text messages and phone conversations between John O'Keefe and Jennifer McCabe as to where this house is located, as he's never been there before. And then he and the defendant drive in the defendant's vehicle to 34 Fairview Road. And once there are several witnesses from within the home that observe the vehicle parked in. So I mentioned earlier there are two females that were with Brian Albert Jr. at the house, one of them being Julie Nick. At some point, she had called her brother, Mr. Ryan, for a ride home. He then gets a ride from his friends, Ricky DiLantonio, as well as his Mr. Nagel's girlfriend, Heather Max, that's riding.
Yeah, but that's the thing you do when you're 16 years old. You don't do it when you're 46.
In the back of Mr. DiLantonio's pickup truck. I say
they couldn't take the notes home with them. They could have them in the jury room, so they could have it when they were deliberating.
Yeah, and I think
that because they arrive at Fairview Road around the same time as the defendant. The defendant is coming in from one direction. The pickup truck with the Nagel brother is coming in from another direction. The pickup truck that the Nagel brother is riding in flashes its lights, signaling the defendant to go. She goes first. They follow in behind, and lo and behold, they end up at the same house. They park the pickup truck somewhere in that right side of the property, facing it from the street in the area of the driveway, and the defendant in her black Lexus SUV parks a little bit further up. Different people from within the pickup and different people from within the house.
Did he just say they parked on the street?
Yeah.
So Karen's car would be directly in front of them?
At this point, the Jeep hadn't materialized. That's one of the things why I wanted to rewatch the opening statements, because the Jeep doesn't go to the street before Higgins takes the stand. No one mentions Brian Higgins in a Jeep, seeing a Jeep anywhere in any testimony from the 29th of January till Brian Higgins sits on the stand. Not one single person have ever mentioned Brian Higgins was driving in a Jeep with a, was it 6 feet plow attachment? Not one single person. Every testimony has Karen Reed at the mailbox, moving slightly up so she is kind of aligned with the front door. That's Jen have testified to all the time. Brian Nagel moves up, parks at the driveway. While Julie Nagel is out there, Karen Reed moves up to the end around the flagpole area. And Then Ryan Nagel looks into her car while they drive past, sees no one in the car, and moves off. When Higgins takes the stand, all of a sudden he thinks it's funny to plow the driveway, even though there's no snow. We have seen the pictures from the library. There's no snow. So I think he meant it was fun to push the snow behind the wheels of cars in front of you. Well, then you're a massive douche.
Yeah, that's
And then he drives back down and parks at the mailbox. Not one single witness saw that car, that Jeep, until Brian Higgins was on the stand. Never. And that's one of those things that I don't understand, that they didn't attack even more. Because no one talked about the Jeep until Brian Higgins claimed he had driven Jeep and drunk out of as a skunk. And when did they get into that Jeep? I think they have to kind of try and have the Jeep there to try and claim they didn't drive in bureau cars. I think it's one of those, oh, fuck, my badge is in trouble, because they probably was in his car when they arrived at the waterfall, his unmarked vehicle, but still government official vehicle, goes to the waterfall, drives up there, not parking where he claims he did, and then he thinks, oh, fuck. And that's why he goes back to the police station to put his car there. He doesn't go back to move cars around because it's desk duty job for a FTA agent. But no one, not one person ever claimed a Jeep was there. Julie Nagel, I think, was asked on the stand and said, I didn't see it. Interesting little thing that is wrong here, and I think he will circle back to it during the closing arguments, talking about the Jeep being there. If the Jeep is there, can you take notes during opening, though? It's not evidence. No, but you can sit and wonder and say, what if any?
What if any?
Yeah. I always felt like they layered the Jeep story into the narrative like an afterthought. The whole thing was weird. I see it as he had to hide to protect his badge that he was driving around in his government vehicle, and that's why he claimed he was driving his Jeep. That's the conclusion I reach. But I know, because I have read every witness testimony and I have reenacted in Lego the fateful night, and not one single testimony I read anywhere mentions the Jeep.
That'd be like the least nefarious reason that he would lie about it, right?
Yeah.
Like the absolute least nefarious.
I don't know what else, why, if any. Didn't they say the Jeep spotter was drunk, blind, autistic? No, that was the Fort Edge spotter that was autistic. Because that's Lucky Loughran. They also claimed that Brian Higgins claimed he left the house between 12:30, which would be before Karen, and maybe that's why the Jeep wasn't there. That could be an explanation why there was no Jeep there. But then it ruins the story about them not seeing or why she couldn't stay where she was. Because it's kind of to have her move up, but it doesn't make sense to move her because we have a clear witness statement. And now Blackboard is coming out.
I'm glad we're doing this because all this is kind of really weird now, right? Like I don't remember it being this.
No, because now you can see what was wrong in the first trial.
Right.
You have a witness statement from Karen Reed says, I parked here. I saw John go up to the house. You have Julian Nagel saying, I went out to my brother's car. It was parked here. And you have statement from the Nagels saying, when they came up to Karen, she moved the truck up a little bit, like halfway down the front lawn. And then she moved it down to the flagpole. And then they drove around her and saw no one else but her, and the light was on in the car. This is impossible to do because at the time Karen Reed arrives, allegedly there's a Jeep there. This should have been a Jeep, a white Jeep with a plow on it. Because Karen Reed has to be back at Fairview at 12:34. I think it's 12:34 she attaches to the Wi-Fi. So she has to at the latest have left this address at 12:28 because it's a 6-minute drive in perfect conditions. Higgins doesn't leave the house till 12:30, 1 o'clock. So the Jeep should have been there. Then you can't trust Nagel's testimony. You can't trust Jen McCabe's because she never saw the Jeep outside in any of her previous testimonies. But she did see Karen move up, and she saw Karen being placed at this point at 12:45.
Interesting.
Jen McCabe saw Karen Reed 17 minutes after. She must, at the latest, for the timeline to work with the Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi that's a data point you can trust because the Wi-Fi only have a certain range. It's probably when she enters the driveway is when she clicks onto the Wi-Fi. Because I can kind of tell when my phone drops off my Wi-Fi if I'm listening to something on my phone. So let's say when she hits the bottom of the driveway is when she connects to the Wi-Fi because that's John's house. She hits that, I believe, 12:34. At Meadows, 12:36. Okay, 12:36. At the best world, it's a 6-minute drive according to Google Maps. We saw it wasn't snow, but it's an address she's never been at before. There was a light dusting, and they want you to believe that she drove so fast that she could spin the planet backwards. Yes, the collision happens during the openings at 12:45. And when they asked Trooper Paul about it would change anything, he just said, nah, it'll be fine. But again, the Jeep was never there. Higgins' Apple Health data would be useful for the timeline. It would. Every one of these people would have been very helpful to get the Apple Health, but too late.
Do you think, Baker,
You're great at 4.
if you were a retired police lieutenant and I'm an active ATF agent we've known each other for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I asked you to get rid of your ring footage because I didn't want to get caught in a patrol car or a government car. Do you think that'd be something that would possibly be a justifiable reason in that lieutenant's mind to not have ring footage?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have to be covering up a murder. He would just have to be covering up the fact that his buddy had a car somewhere he wasn't supposed to.
I believe Jen texted pull behind me at 12:32, but I do have the timeline. I could look it up, but right now I'm just going from memory. I believe it's 12:32 where Karen has left the establishment. Now I have to go look because now
At the
I can pull up
waterfall or wherever it was.
I have the full timeline made with help from Jemima. So let's go down.
Shout out Jemima.
12:11. Reed leaves waterfall. O'Keefe leaves waterfall carrying a cocktail glass. 12:15, 12:30. Ryan Nagel, Heather Maxwell, and a friend picks up Julie Nagel from 34 Fairview. They see a black SUV with a woman inside, but does not notice damage or anyone getting out. But Julie doesn't go with them. That's a small mistake. 12:20, Colin Albert arrives home. That is also, well, you can't see anything. But that's also a mistake because that's what his dad said, but his dad didn't leave the bar when he said he left the bar. And after that, Higgins texts O'Keefe, where are you at? No, then I have a mistake here with the Ryan Nagel. I'll delete this one. It's a little bit of a Frankenstein. So 12:23 a.m. Ryan Nagel texts Julie saying, outside, have a conversation, maybe 2 to 5 minutes. So that puts it at 25 to 12:28. And then Ryan and his friends leave. Occupants in the car with Ryan saw SUV with no broken tail light and only a woman in the SUV. Did not see anyone get out of the car. Theoretically, they leave by 12:28 a.m. Could have been 12:23 if you take the smallest time frame. 12:24, O'Keefe's phone location confirms arrival at 34 Fairview Road, but his phone does not record movement after 12:25. 12:27 to 12:45 a.m. Jen McCabe texts O'Keefe 5 times telling him to pull behind her, claiming she saw Reed's SUV move 3 times. 12:30, Allison McCabe arrives home. Reed's car went in reverse at 24 miles per hour per alley. Somewhere between 12:30 and 1 a.m., Brian Higgins leaves Fairview, moves his vehicle at Canton PD, then drives home, seen on film at the CPD. But he's not seen at the CPD till 1:34. This is a 5-minute drive that takes him at least, and if we go by the smallest time frame, it takes him half an hour to drive 5 minutes, which is also very weird. 12:33, Reed calls O'Keefe and it goes unanswered. 12:36, Reed's phone connects to John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi. She calls him 50 plus times between now and 6:08. 12:36, I hate you. 12:55, I'm going home. 12:59 to 1:18, multiple messages. And 1:30 to 1:45, Jen and Matt McCabe, Julie Nagel, Sarah Livingston leave 34 Fairview Road. Nagel says a black blob on the lawn. Never mentioned the black blob on the lawn until this trial either. The more you know. Oh, Christine's courtroom. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. But this is the fun part. This is the breakdown show where you sit here and listen. This is the story they went with during the first trial. And during the trial, it came out, and we're not going to do it tonight because it's going to be late before we're done with this. But I might do it tomorrow, do the closing arguments, just to see how much Lally's explanations changed. Because he didn't even notice he effed up until the defense showed him he effed up. Chris or Colin had a Jeep? No, Colin had a Ford Edge. Baker's drawings are just as good as Trooper Paul's reconstructions. Thank you.
At least.
Wicked Psych has been a member for 17 months. Thank you so much. I don't know what any of this means. 12:31:47 pull behind me. So at that time, Karen Reed have left Fairview 34. Because at the best condition, she must leave at 12:30. Chris Albert didn't even leave the bar till 12:14. No, and he claimed he left before midnight, and that's why he came home. 12:32, John's phone is locked manually. Plevin has a reason for that. It's because Karen tosses the phone out the car.
Why would that lock it, though?
Well, probably locked it when she picked it out and threw it out. Well, our pleasure, Corey.
Absolutely.
Almost 15K, Baker. Congrats. Well, yeah. Thank you.
Weird.
It's been a long audience journey since we started this trial last year. Maybe I can get to 15,000 doing the second one. What time did Karen leave the message? I'm going home. 12:55. Yeah, they might have effed it up and said, well, she says that at 12:55, so she must mean she was driving back to I can't Clearwater, but still, it doesn't. I think they did it because if Jen sees her at 12:45, and then after that is when she does it, and then she texts 12:55, I'm going home. But they misread half of it. I think that's the problem.
Observe that, Alexis.
I love that a 38-minute statement, and we have been going for an hour and a half.
Only 20 minutes into
in one location, pull up a little bit further, and then pull up a little bit further till it's in the area of that fire hydrant, of that flagpole, where Mr. O'Keefe is located the following morning. Now, from their position, we anticipate the testimony that you're going to hear is that Heather Maxson from that pickup truck observes a male passenger and a female operator when the pickup truck operator flashes those lights at the vehicle as they're facing each other.
They didn't. No one saw anyone else in the car. There was no male operator seen in the car.
Before they pulled out. Period. What you'll hear also, I anticipate, from all three of those individuals in the pickup and Julie Nagel, who comes out to the pickup to talk to the brother, is that no one ever exits that vehicle. There are no footprints around that vehicle. There's no damage that they observed to that vehicle at that time. Again, it's just started to snow. Things aren't sticking really too much at this point. Julie Nagel has a conversation with her brother, decides that she's going to stay at the house longer, so arrangements for a ride home, and the pickup truck leaves from that point. As they pass by, they observe a female operator matching what I submit as the description of the defendant. From all of those people within that house that evening, none of them at any point in time observed John O'Keefe come into the house. They see the vehicle out front, they see the vehicle pull away, and they just assume that they left and that no one was coming in. We'll hear testimony from other individuals who were at the house that night, including Colin Albert, who is Julie and Christopher Albert's son. He's also the cousin of Brian Albert Jr., who was having people over for his birthday. He's leaving the house around the time that the initial people coming back from the waterfall, which includes the homeowners and Mr. Higgins, are sort of coming into the house. At that point, Colin Albert is leaving. He's getting picked up by a young lady named Allison McCabe, who is Jennifer and Matthew McCabe's daughter, who's also friends with Colin Albert and also cousins of Brian Albert Jr., who's in the home celebrating his birthday. As I mentioned, you'll hear testimony from Matthew McCabe and from Jennifer McCabe in regard to their observations that particular evening, both at the waterfall as well as at the residence on Fairview Road. And then you'll hear testimony in regard to a phone call. A phone call that Jennifer McCabe receives from John O'Keefe's niece at approximately 4:53 in the morning. She answers that phone call, speaks to the niece briefly, and the niece hands the phone over to the defendant. Now, you'll hear testimony from the niece as well, that about 4:30 in the morning or so, the defendant came into her room in a frantic state, saying that Mr. O'Keefe had not come home the night before. So initially, when the defendant is talking to Ms. McCabe, she indicates to Ms. McCabe that the last time she saw Mr. O'Keefe was at the waterfall. Eventually, as Ms. McCabe is waking up, she reminds the defendant that she not only saw them leave the waterfall around the same time as herself, but also saw the vehicle, the defendant's vehicle, outside of the home on Fairview Road. Eventually, the defendant, while driving around, this will come in as far as other testimony, related testimony as it develops, but she's driving around that morning, she's calling a number of different people, friends of Mr. O'Keefe, she's calling Mr. O'Keefe himself. She also calls Mr. Roberts. So Terry Roberts receives a call about 5 a.m. from the defendant indicating that Mr. O'Keefe did not come home, indicating that he got hit by a plow or that he must be dead. Ms. Roberts then gets ready, Mr. McCabe is getting ready as they're all sort of planning to go out and look for Mr. O'Keefe and see if they can locate him. They call numerous times, you can see that within the text messages and the phone extractions from a variety of people's written calls throughout the course of this trial as well. So eventually the defendant comes to Ms. McCabe's home, indicates at some point prior to that she has a cracked tailgate. Ms. McCabe then gets in the driver's seat due to the defendant's frantic state. Ms. Roberts is there as well. Ms. Roberts follows Ms. McCabe driving the defendant's vehicle back to Mr. O'Keefe's residence on Meadows Ave, checks on the niece. The defendant then shows both Ms. Roberts and
This is another thing I don't understand. Why go back to John O'Keefe's house to check on the niece? It's not what they claim. They go back to the house to check if he's home. Now it's to check on the niece. Why would you go back home and check on the niece? That's another and another one of those. Why would you go back home to Clearwater? Why wouldn't you say, okay, we go to the waterfall and we'll track? No, you don't do that. You go to Fairview 34 and says, I saw you outside of the house yesterday. Let's go back and look in that area. Isn't that the most reasonable thing you do? Why would you go back home, leave one car, pile into another car, and then go back to where you saw it the last time? Why wouldn't you go to that place to begin with? Maybe if you are also related to a shit ton of cops, why aren't you on the horn already to all of these cops saying, hey, we lost John. We're thinking something could have happened with the massive blizzard yesterday. Karen can't remember where she dropped him off. And remember, I saw them outside of your house yesterday. He might have slipped in the snow or something. Hey, Bri, you big old tough guy. Can you jump off Coco and help us out? Why is none of the men helping these women? I know it's strong, powerful women, says, but if anyone called me up while I still had a wife and said, we're going searching, I would tell my wife to put on the warm clothes. I would heat the car. You're still muted.
I have two things on this. One, didn't Jen McCabe, I think it was Jen McCabe, also try to get them to drive to some chick's house before they got back to 34 Fairview?
She mentions it apparently, but in what context, how it is, because it's the same lady she talks to John on the phone with, which they then claimed that Karen heard and blew a gasket over, because she apparently said it's close by where someone lives who you used to
Some
bang.
ex-girlfriend or something.
Yeah.
So she's trying to come up with another option other than 34 Fairview on that ride, though, right? She's trying to put up another stop in there possibly, or another side quest, if you will, to possibly buy more time to match whatever the Google search showed her.
Or just to mention it.
Why though? Why would you mention that there? Like, right? Like, I know your boyfriend's missing right now and we're trying to find him, but he used to bang this girl. Maybe he's over there. Like,
yeah. Have you heard if he was laying pipe at Susan's house? They used to be a couple 5 years ago.
The other thing I have on this is I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that the police force is set up semi-similar to the military.
Yeah.
In the military, we have a network of phone calls, right? If there's anything that happens, if you get recalled, one person doesn't call 300 dudes. There's a network. It all happens very quickly. In a matter of a couple minutes, everybody in the company knows they have to come back. I would assume the cops have a similar network in place. And I would assume that that would probably be their first reaction as police officers. Oh, a cop's missing. We all were together last night. Everybody reach out to everybody, figure out who saw him last, where it was, where to go from there. I would assume that would be the first reaction of a veteran police officer.
Sergeant Goody is getting a call at the police 911 desk at 4. Does it state on this one? No, I don't have the first 911 call on this one. But they called Goody, who is the active duty on the 911 that night. And if you say, hey, my boyfriend at Boston PD didn't come home last night, did he just say, hey, could you go check for him? Or would he already be going on the horn and say, hey, keep an eye out, we have a missing person, he's a Boston cop? They wouldn't do the, hey, wait 48 hours. It's a Boston cop. And she must have mentioned that it's John, he's a cop. And everyone knew John because he took care of the kids, and everyone knew he was a good Boston. We are in that territory where everyone knows John is the best person in the world because he took care of the kids. So they must have known he's a Boston cop because that would be one of the things they wrote in the local papers. But no one knows that John is a Boston cop. It's one of those where you're a little bit pregnant because you know if they were doing a feel-good story about how he took these poor kids in, then they would have mentioned that decorated Boston cops loses sister but gains 2 kids or something like that. It would be the headlines. But no one thinks, let's just call around to everyone because everyone we know is a fucking cop or an EMT.
Everyone.
And they have go-backs.
Oh, yeah.
You know how it is. You are in the deepest slumber and someone hits the buzzer. You're in your helmet and your vest with your rifle before you even open your eyes.
Facts.
If someone called Brian Higgins, a 20-year veteran who also did active duty, at 4 a.m, a guy with 5 kids or how many he have, he would have been out the door before he even picked up the phone. Because no one calls a cop at that time without he needs to do something. And no cop, no EMT sleep through a phone call at that time of the day. No one. I'm just saying.
It's getting more and more weird.
Yeah, the more you think about it, the less sense it makes.
Yes.
Oh, we have a Smurf in here. So no one's going to acknowledge the federal investigation into third-party culprits is closed with no one being charged but Karen Reed. But don't let the facts stop you guys. We have a special service on this channel where we, because I get a small grant from the ADA, so we take special care of you needy people. Karen Reed hasn't been charged by the federal investigation. The federal investigation wasn't into the third-party culprits. So maybe go back to Plevin, get him to tell you what really happened, then come back and try and say something that has nothing to do with the topic we're covering today, because we're not talking about the feds. On this channel, we have a long history of saying feds ain't gonna do shit. So go back, get your mom to wipe your mouth off. You're drooling a little bit. Ask Plevin what stupid thing you have to say tomorrow, and come back tomorrow because we're only going to do defense openings because it's getting late here. So I'll be doing something tomorrow. State opening because it takes way longer. So come back tomorrow, get your helmet on, and get Plevin to give you some new talking points. Maybe bring up, do you know there has been a chip off that data will destroy Karen Reed? Or come back with, do you know she was banging Higgins? Or come back with, do you know she was a drunk? We've heard them all before. We did it for a year. Please, all of you Smurfs, bring better material. I've heard it before. None of it makes sense. It doesn't change shit. And again, I've never said that anyone else did it. I've always said Karen didn't do it. But apparently, on the short bus where Plevin is the driver, you all have to say the same stupid things that makes no sense. So, wipe the drool off your face, come back tomorrow, put on the soft helmet, and we'll go again. Deal, buddy? That's a good kid.
To paraphrase a great Tennessean, go ask your mom to get you a Hot Pocket and charge your Game Boy batteries.
It's hilarious when you present facts, the response is childish insult and conspiracy babble. I agree. Because what you come up with is conspiracy babble and childish insults. When I present facts, you should come back and say, well, it doesn't make sense because, as you can see, and you should battle it with facts instead of trying to say something about the feds, which has nothing to do with the case. Or maybe, again, go back to Plevin. I know he can't help you write it, but you should say when you are presented with facts. I'm dyslexic as well, so I understood what you meant, but you wrote it wrong. So scuttle off, back to mama, and see you tomorrow. Have a nice time. Please hit the like on the way out the door.
Ms. McCabe, the damage to her right rear taillight, which is essentially missing a number of different pieces from that right rear taillight. They then proceed off to drive and see if they can locate Mr. O'Keefe. The defendant is insistent that they go to that residence on Fairview Road. Again, they're driving down there in the dark, in the snow, in the wind, in the blizzard. As they approach towards that residence, there's one person, so they're seated within the vehicle, and this is Ms. Roberts' vehicle, where she's driving. Mrs. McCabe is in the front passenger seat, and the defendant is in the rear passenger seat. The defendant is the only one who sees Mr. O'Keefe. He yells and screams at Ms. Roberts to stop the vehicle. Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe, I anticipate, will testify that they did not see Mr. O'Keefe, not only as they were driving past him, but even after they got out of the vehicle, until the defendant gets out of the back seat and makes a beeline essentially right over to where Mr. O'Keefe's body is found. Mrs. McCabe then dials 911. And shortly after that is when the officers and the firefighters arrive on scene. Now, while they're waiting there, approximately 6:23, 6:24 a.m., during a conversation with the defendant asks Mrs. McCabe to look up on her phone how long someone has to be out in the cold to die from hypothermia, or something to that effect. And you'll hear some dispute as to when that search was made. And you'll hear testimony from 3 different forensic extraction experts, Mr. Nicholas Carino, Ms. Jessica Hyde, and Mr. Ian Whiffen, who you'll hear about a lot of these things called extraction reports from cell phones. And the extraction reports are done with a program called Cellbrite. And Mr. Whiffen is someone who writes that software for Cellbrite.
Nope. Mr. Whiffen is a sales rep who goes between the customers and the nerds and tell the nerds what the customers wants. Mr. Whiffen doesn't write one single piece of code for software with Cellbrite. He's a sales rep for Cellbrite. He then has his own program that he claims is needed to read Cellbrite. No one else in the world ever said anything like that other than in this case. In every single other case, Cellbrite is Cellbrite.
You know how many people they've put in prison over those Cellbrite numbers? It's never once been questioned. Never once in the history of Cellbrite reports has that been a question.
Again, it's a misstatement of facts. Mr. Whiffen is not someone who writes anything other than invoices. Oh, and he does seminars. Funny enough, right after he was shitting on his own company, Cellbrite, on the stand, he was taken off as a guest speaker at a conference.
I anticipate you'll hear from each of their testimonies that Google search that was done on Ms. McCabe's phone was done at the same time frame that she indicates the defendant requested her to do it, and that at 6:23 and 6:24 morning. You'll hear testimony from Ms. Roberts, Ms. McCabe, the firefighters, and the responding Kent police officers about a repeated phraseology that the defendant stated while there, asking again and again in regard to Mr. O'Keefe, is he dead? Is he dead? You will also hear testimony, as I indicated, about sort of treatment that she received at the Good Samaritan Medical Center, and that would involve testimony from Ms. Daisy Hornseth, Ms. Kathleen Wilford, and Dr. Gary Fowler. You'll hear testimony from a number of different analysts from the State Police Crime Lab and from some other laboratories as well. Included within that will be Mr. Nicholas Roberts, and Ms. Maureen Hartnett, Mr. Andre Coyle, Ms. Ashley Valier, and Ms. Christina Hannon, those all being from the State Police Lab. You will hear testimony in regard to an incident which occurred earlier in January, right around New Year's. Mr. O'Keefe, the defendant, and the children had been invited with a much larger group, approximately 70 people or so, to spend New Year's in Aruba. This is a trip that was organized by a friend of Mr. O'Keefe's named Laura Sullivan. You'll hear testimony from her, as well as from her sister, Ms. Marietta Sullivan, as well as you'll hear testimony from the 2 children in relation to this. And essentially, day 2 or so of this trip, Marietta Sullivan, the sister of Laura, is walking through the lobby and she runs into Mr. O'Keefe. This is someone she refers to as godfather because John O'Keefe is also the godfather of Laura Sullivan's son. Runs into him in the lobby, gives him a hug and is sort of pointing him in the direction of where she believes he's going into his room. The defendant is in the area. The defendant starts yelling and screaming and swearing at Ms. Sullivan. Ms. Sullivan responds in kind. And essentially, for the most part, the Sullivan sisters see very little of Mr. O'Keefe throughout the remainder of their trip to Aruba. And we also hear testimony from the children that shortly after this, or immediately after this, there is an approximately 20-minute screaming match going on between Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant.
Valhalla, I know you have a perfect relationship with Miss Valhalla, but you probably have been in a relationship with other people before that. You used to be a bouncer, right?
Yeah.
Did any chicas ever do the good old trick, either try to pay the cover by being a little friendly to a bouncer, maybe try to, because it seems like they like bartenders and bouncers. Have you ever had a girlfriend who misunderstood that situation and taught you several new ones? Because you were hitting on that chick.
Let's go with hypothetically.
I got screamed at for not only 20 minutes, because I went back to my old the marching band I played in, and I gave a hug to a girl who was probably 13 the last time she saw me, who came running out, jumped up and gave me a hug, and she was probably 16, 17 years old, and said, "Oh, I haven't seen you in ages, and I'm so glad that you're home from your deployment." I was screamed at for an hour because I was clearly trying to bang this chick while I was standing with my wife and my kid. Because
that's logical.
Yeah.
Logical. Hell no.
I heard both Sullivan sisters on the witness list. Did I must misunderstand Bev in her ruling that Aruba wasn't supposed to be brought in? Hanky Panky said he wasn't going to bring it in. I must be honest, I haven't read through the 150 combined witnesses on the list, which I even think is more than 150. I think they might be kept if they want some rebuttal, which they have nothing to use. Hanky Panky said he didn't want to use it, but Hanky Panky, this will come to a shock for most of you, is known to make slight embellishments when it comes to the truth.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, I'm a hound dog. It's a real question as to why that marriage didn't work out. Yeah, isn't it a big surprise? I said hi to someone at a supermarket. Didn't even talk to them. Just said, "Hey, good to see you." That was me out there sowing my oats.
That is unhealthy. That is absolutely unhealthy.
I'm not saying that it was a great thing that I got divorced, but it was the best thing that happened since having my kids.
Within their hotel room, in front of the children.
Anymore.
Well, now it's having my grandkid.
Yeah.
Now you'll also hear testimony from the defendant's phone in regard to, and from another individual's phone in regard to that Aruba trip, in regard to text messages of an amorous nature that she had with Mr. Brian Higgins, who was at the waterfall, and also at the residence on 34th Fairview, because he was friends with the homeowner, Brian Albert, but he was also friends with Mr. O'Keefe, and had also met the defendant. And throughout the course of those amorous text messages, there's references that the defendant makes to that incident in Aruba, as she purports it to be Mr. O'Keefe cheating on her. She insists that he was making out with Marietta Sullivan in that lobby as opposed to her giving him a hug. And makes repeated reference to that within the contents of those text messages as well. Now, you'll hear testimony from a number of different other individuals, Mr. Michael Trotter, who has a supervisory role with Canton Department of Public Works, We'll hear from Mr. Louis Jutras, who has a supervisory role with regard to IT, in regard to certain video that was recovered from the town of Canton, as well as from a temple located along the route that the defendant traveled, both away from Fairview that evening, as well as to Fairview from the waterfall, away from Fairview to Mr. O'Keefe's residence.
Remember that guy, Trot, not Trotter, the other one. He was the guy that they on cross should have asked, is it true that the Sallyport video records inverted? Because he's never there to testify about it, but he was the guy who was in charge of all cameras in the city, so they should just magically have known that they should have asked him if it was true. Yeah, because that's how it works.
Meadows, and then later in the morning at 5. Because if you recall, Ms. McCabe, I anticipate, would testify that she receives the call from the defendant about 4:53 in the morning. The defendant then drives around Canton for some perceptible half-hour or so period of time prior to even getting to Ms. McCabe's. And what I submit the evidence, or what I anticipate the evidence will show, based on sort of the tracking of the phone records, testimony you'll hear from Lieutenant Brian Tully of the State Police, from these faulty records and RTT accounts, that the defendant, while she's using her phone, is driving in the direction of Fairview Road prior to going to Mrs. McCabe's house, where she meets Mr. McCabe.
This is a smart way to say it, because he's not dumb enough to say she goes to Fairview 34, because they would have shredded his ass on that one. But in the direction of every road leads to Rome, as we say in Denmark. Yeah, everywhere you drive in that area, if you're driving around looking, at some point you will be driving in the direction of Fairview 34. Unless you go the opposite way. But why would you go the opposite way when you're looking for your boyfriend you dropped off at Fairview 34?
Right.
It's such a small swarming way to kind of imply that she went back there and might have known he was there, but...
Right. Now again, you'll hear testimony from a number of different troopers who were involved in the investigation. With regard to this case, you'll hear from Trooper Michael Proctor and Sergeant Yuri Buchanan of the State Police. You'll hear from Lieutenant Brian Tully. We'll hear some testimony from Trooper Joseph Hall, who's in a specialized unit within the State Police called HALS for short, but essentially a collision analysis and reconstruction section within the Massachusetts State Police. His examination of the vehicle, his examination of the scene, his examination of specifically some Toyota texture, because Lexus is essentially owned by Toyota or vice versa. So there is some data that he's able to recover from that and back the vehicle up based on its known locations and travel, and key cycles, and essentially opines, anticipate he'll opine that around 12:45 in the morning, when the vehicle was in front of the residence on Fairview, that for some perceptible period of time, that vehicle travels over 60 feet in reverse at over approximately 24.2 miles per hour. Now, you'll hear testimony, as I said, from a number of different troopers, as well as from a number of different analysts from different labs. Included within that is Ms. Maureen Hartnett, who collected items from the vehicle, the defendant's vehicle, including the taillights, sort of housing from that vehicle, pieces of the taillight that were discovered in sort of the front grass and front street area. There is a specialized team called the CERT team. You'll hear from Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, who has a supervisory role in relation to that. And then later on that day of the 29th, he, along with Lieutenant Tully and a number of different members from his CERT team, were searching for evidence within the mounds of snow in front of that house, as the blizzard is still ongoing at this point through sort of the afternoon hours. Among the items that they locate is a sneaker. When Mr. O'Keefe is transported to the hospital, he's found to only have one sneaker on his feet. They find the other sneaker in that area of the body. They find various pieces of taillight, and as is wont to do over the course of the fall.
No. They find the shoe at the curb, which is 6 to 20 feet from the body. We never really establishes where the body is located, because there's no establishing shots. And we heard testimony everywhere from 6 to 20 feet. So they don't find the shoe in that area. They find it at the curb, and this is why it's clearly a hit and run, because every hit and run, people get knocked out of their shoes. Wait for Trooper Proctor's testimony. This is how he decides it's a hit and run, because they find the shoe at the curb, which they don't find till after Karen Reed's car has been impounded.
Following days, the temperatures rise, there's a rainstorm that comes in, and the snow melts. Over those successive days, there are additional pieces of taillights that are eventually discovered in that area of the front lawn of the street. Now,
eventually, 14 days later, I saw someone yesterday doing a TikTok. I saw it on X. I don't have TikTok. Where they looked at the weather report for the days where Trooper Proctor found the glass evidence. The snow had melted from, he finds it on the 9th, the 11th, and the 16th or something like that. The snow has melted on the 9th. So if he finds one effing piece of plastic on the 9th, he should have found every piece of plastic on the 9th.
If there was no snow on the ground and he found a piece, he should have absolutely done a very thorough search, possibly even had tech guys come out and do another search, and it should have all been found that day.
Nah, that just...
Why would you...
It's just popping up. You know how it is. The gnomes come running out of the houses and put small pieces of plastic here and there. This is another thing that Plevin gets totally wrong in his book, because he claims that all the pieces of plastic must have been dropped that day. No, you just need one piece, and then you can put the rest there later. Because as soon as you have that one piece, you can say, oh, we found pieces of tail light. And then you can put the rest there later and find that. Remember Berkowitz, who is blind as a bat, who was on leave because he had cancer, drove by 6 days later and saw tail lights. But not one single piece of snow was ever documented to be found underneath snow. Well, we put it on top to show where we found it. That's not how it's done. The second you find it, you take a picture, then you dig it out, take a new picture, then you preserve it in an evidence bag with your name, seal it off, put it in to the customs locker.
From these different pieces, it's hard to also locate the cocktail glass that's located on the bumper or the rear.
Nope, it wasn't located on the bumper. This is again a lie. That Lally makes. No glass found on the bumper is consistent with the cocktail glass, and I believe none of the glass found on the bumper is consistent with any other glass at the scene.
Area of that scene, and she locates a human hair on the back of that defendant's vehicle as well. Now, the cocktail glass on the bumper, you'll also see surveillance video from the waterfall, and Mr. O'Keefe is observed on that surveillance video essentially walking out of the waterfall with a cocktail glass in his right hand. The same right hand that has minor injuries to it, and the same right hand that's attached to his right arm that has the abrasions and lacerations that are observed by the paramedics, that are observed by the doctors at Good Samaritan, and are observed by the medical examiner as well. We'll hear testimony from another analyst, Christina Hanlon,
Is that
about
the
the
proof
forensic
he's using right
consistency
there?
between a drinking.
Sorry?
Is that the proof he's using right there? He walked out of it in the right hand, so
Yeah.
the marks on the right arm are because of this glass. That when he got struck like a half hour later after getting in and out of a vehicle, he couldn't possibly have moved the glass out of his right arm the entirety of this duration of time.
And then he changes the statement that it's the tail light that makes the injuries. He claims it's the cocktail glass. As the case goes on, it transfers to being the tail light that injures his arm. Don't think about it. It's easier if you don't.
It's just so.
It's the Canton
Mind
Triangle. It's stupid.
Glass that was in the defendant's bumper and the drinking glass pieces that were found on scene at 34th Fairview. You'll hear her testimony in regard to pieces of red and clear plastic that were microscopic in size that were found within Mr. O'Keefe's clothing. Consistent, in her opinion, I anticipate she'll testify, with the same pieces of plastic contained within the defendant's tailor. We'll hear from an Ashley Valley, who works for the lab as well, and how she fit the various pieces of broken taillight from the scene together and over that taillight housing, finding them to be consistent with each other as well. We'll hear testimony from Andre Porto, who's essentially DNA analyst for the lab, and samples that were DNA samples that were taken from the taillight, from the clothes of Mr. O'Keefe, and the broken drinking glass that were consistent with Mr. O'Keefe. Those items were also sent, the taillight pieces, taillight DNA was also sent from the independent lab, Bodie Technologies, located in Northern Virginia. And you'll hear from an analyst there, Mr. Nicholas Bradford, indicating that the DNA on the defendant's taillight, in his opinion, is consistent with that of Mr. O'Keefe, and inconsistent with Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Mechanic, who were the two preliminary investigators and primary investigators when it came to this case. You'll also hear from Ms. Hess Chart from that Bodie Laboratories in regard to some.
No, they say he has his arm out. and that's how he gets hit. He gets sideswiped, and that generates enough force that he flies through the air without breaking his arm, ripping it out of the socket, or anything.
That was their like final.
Arguably, that she
That's the third explanation.
examined in regard to that hair that Ms. Hartnett found on the bumper of the car, and her opinion that it was consistent with that of Mr. O'Keefe as well. And lastly, you'll also hear from Dr. Irene Sportibello and Dr. Renee Stonebridge of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in regard to
If his arm is outstretched in front of him and the car is backing up, the right side can hit him. Yes.
their various examinations. Dr. Stonebridge is a neuropathologist. She essentially examines brain findings. Dr. Irene Sportibello is a forensic pathologist who does the sort of autopsy and medical examination of Mr. O'Keefe's body. You'll hear about the variety of sort of injuries that she observed over Mr. O'Keefe's body. In particular, you'll hear testimony in regard to lacerations to the right back of his head. You'll hear testimony in regard to an initial sort of skull fracture that occurs to the back of his head, and then sort of a radiating skull fracture that goes throughout his skull, which then leads to subdural hemorrhage, or essentially bleeding on the brain and then swelling of the brain, which then causes a condition called ecchymosis, which then sort of leads to the swelling of both of Mr. O'Keefe's eyes that is observed by the initial response. You will hear various testimony about sort of issues in regard to his ankles and how that's indicative of hypothermia. Now, again, as I said, this is the first of two times that I have an opportunity to address you directly, and I thank you very much.
Wouldn't if he had a drink with him, it would be totally reasonable to before going inside the house, or he might have done so in the car and then come out with the glass in the hand because he wanted to take it inside. Yeah, it's many. But why is his arm outstretched across the road? Because he must be standing at the curve. Because that's where they claim he's hit. So why is he standing? I might have had one or two beverages with alcohol in it in my life. I've never stood like this with a beverage in my hand.
Well, you know, cops, they're notoriously bad at reacting to dangerous situations.
If you can go into the next room, it will be even harder to hear you when you're not near your mic.
My bad. You know, cops, they're notoriously bad at reacting to dangerous situations. So, like, I could totally see him just standing there while a Lexus slammed on the gas at 24 miles an hour and hit him in the arm somehow.
Yeah,
notoriously bad at reaction times.
Blood alcohol level wasn't that high, and he was in this position, and a 6,000-pound vehicle gunned its, I believe it's a V8 or maybe a turbocharged V6 in reverse. And I don't know, because I drive a stick, so we only have one reverse gear. I don't know if it'll gear up in an automatic, but it would scream like a harpy if it was my car. And he says, yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah. And then he gets chucked in the arm, turned around, spun 8 to 20 feet away, slams into the now very, very hard ground, gets an radiating fracture with a cut, 2 cuts on the back of his head that instantly knocks him out, and then he chooses to lay on his stomach, dropping his phone underneath him and half the cocktail glass without any injury other than the 2 nicks to the back of his head, a nick to his nose and a nick to his eye, because nothing but science could explain, because this is just reasonable to believe that get knocked on the arm generates enough force to spin you round, round, baby, round, round, and send you flying.
Well, he's so terrible, man.
Why didn't the jury just stand up at that time and said, "Are you effing kidding us? You're paying us $15 a day for this shit? I'm out." It's Oh. Hey! No stray end! The slow bus is back. Karen Reed saying she pulled a piece of glass wedged on John's face. You misspelled John. Is more in line with the prosecution's version of event versus John getting into a 20v1 fight in the entire town of Canton and a dog.
Why do you
Exactly.
do that? Why do you who said he got in a 20v1 fight? Who said that? You're just stating weird, ridiculous things and then trying to say that that's our words. Nobody said that. I have no idea what happened. I know that Karen Reed didn't hit her with his car. I know that.
I know you probably never seen this because I don't think you can even see down your own body. This is a human. Well, it's not. It's actually a figure. Let me tell you something. If 6,000 pounds goes 24 miles per hour, it generates a lot of force. I don't hold it against you that you can't figure out Newton's law, but it's quite simple. It's one of the most simple equations you'll learn. Speed versus speed times mass times acceleration equals force. You will have us believe, because you're the smartest person in the room. Me and Valhalla, we just thought he got in a fight with 25 people because, yeah, we're functionally retarded. He's standing with his arm outstretched, listening to a car going brum, and thinking, ladies, am I right? Can they drive a car? And then he looks to his right and sees this car with all the lights on. Remember, I don't know if you have this ingenious invention in Americas. We have it in Denmark. It's called a backup light. It'll light up really bright white. It's an amazing invention. It's because then when you go backwards, you can kind of see stuff. And he thinks, it'll be fine. I'll just stand here with my glass in my outstretched hand, because she is actually a cross between Ayrton Senna and Kimi Räikkönen. So she's a great Formula One driver and a decent rally driver. She will not hit me. And then she accidentally just slams into his arm, sends him spinning. This glass that he holds in his hand, being invoked with 6,000 pounds, going 3 points per hour, stays in his hand. It breaks, but it stays in his hand, because that'll travel with him when he lands in the snow, passes out, and turns over with the glass underneath him. You are correct. All of this makes more sense than anyone who will claim that the 2 scrapes in the back of his head and the radiating skull fracture could indicate that he had blunt force trauma or even a little bit of sharp force trauma to the back of his head. I am sorry that we were stupid enough to think that we actually could see through the reasoning and logic of all the smart people in the Canton PD. They changed their story a couple of times because one of the troopers, Trooper Paul, who's a science genius, he did 140 hours of science. He claims the arm is bent, but that doesn't line up with the dent to the back of the car. So Lally just changes it and said, no, the arm was stretched. If this arm had been hit by 6,000 pounds going 24.3 miles per hour, normal, stupid people, not smart people like you, would believe this arm would have either been torn out of its socket or at least have a lot of ligaments being really, really bad. And again, I know this is a European thing. I know, keep on, it can get a little bit distracting, I know, but this isn't an accurate depiction. Actually, legs and stuff like that is a little bit bigger. In Europe, we have bumpers. Bumpers, actually in Denmark, we call them cow catchers. But we have bumpers on our cars. They are protruding from the car. So before his arm would have been hurt, his legs would have been crashed into by 6,000 pounds, moving at 24.3 miles per hour, hitting him. And I know you're not one of those dumb people like us that thinks, if that amount of force is exerted to a leg, it'll probably rip the knee, send him flying, crashing him on the side. No. He would be standing up, because he's a man's man. He takes 6,000 pounds on the knee. He gets a slight reddish abrasion on his knee, but his Achilles heel was the outstretched arm. The leg, he could have taken that every day. He did his leg training. But why are people so stupid?
I wish I knew.
And they come in with these shitty arguments that has nothing to do with anything.
I think that's called a straw man. Straw man
Yeah.
is what they call that, I think.
You believe, I've never said that. Well, Aiden said, I didn't don't talk with Aiden. Well, Andrea Burkhardt, yeah, wonderful person. She's not on the stream right now. It's like they think we all have one brain and try to share it. As
Well,
I
we
told,
have to. We have
like
to
I
have
told
only one
KP
brain.
today, did you grow up in a house with a lot of lead paint? Did Karen removing a piece of glass ever get into evidence in the first place? No, never mentioned in the first trial. Never ever mentioned that. And she said it was a piece of glass kind of perched on his nose that started bleeding when she pulled it off. We also need bumpers. You should get the backup lights and the bumpers on your cars. I think it could revolutionize America. Because apparently you don't have these implements that would have made this accident impossible in the way that Lally claims. Oh, yeah, and of course.
Yes,
At the
blood
time-
dripping down his clothing.
At the time when he was laying on his front after hitting the back of his head, turning over after he passed out, he started bleeding and puking on his undergarments and his pants. Because it just makes sense if you're stupid.
You've heard of this gravity thing, right? Pulls objects to the center of the earth. So if you've got like blood, for example, coming out of like your mouth and you're laying on the ground, it'll just kind of go to the ground, right? But if you're standing up, then it'll drip down your clothes.
What if you're in Australia?
Then it drips up your face and just falls.
Okay.
Yeah. That's different in Australia.
Yeah, it's my mistake. I've forgotten how Canton works. It makes sense if you
triangle.
don't think about it.
The
No
Canton
physics.
triangle.
Giving us his passive-aggressive side. You tell him, man, they're all stupid. They are. Yeah, it must be. I've never heard about this gravity.
Novel concept. Cutting edge of science there.
You got to stop and think about there's two things that could have only happened. Well, like, a few things could have happened, but there's two things that's likely to have happened. Yeah. Could convince him with the arm pictures from the other trial. Funny enough, every time you show these pictures online, you get demonetized. It's weird. And again, they're not, I've seen worse pictures. I have shown pictures of someone where they removed the heart. Lawn and Krim has shown those pictures. But that arm picture, anytime you show it, you will get a yellow. It's so weird.
Much for your attention today, and I thank you for the participation of your close attention as we go through all of the witnesses and all the evidence in this case. That second time that I do get to address you, what I'll be asking you to do based on the evidence, and again, as the board has instructed you, you are the sole arbiters of the facts of this case. You are the ones who find what the facts, and I reiterate that, the facts, and what the evidence demonstrates in this case. And what I submit to you at that time, that second time, is that the only true and just verdict based on that is that the defendant, Karen Reed, is guilty of murder in the second degree, striking the victim, Mr. O'Keefe, with a car, knocking him back onto the ground, striking his head on the ground, causing the bleeding in his brain, swelling, and then leaving him there for several hours in a blizzard, with temperatures in the teens, wind swirling around, snow piling up on his body until she comes with Mrs. McCabe and Mrs. Roberts just after 6 a.m. And that she is also guilty of vehicular manslaughter, operating under the influence of liquor, and that she was also guilty of agency at the cause of death. Thank you very much for listening.
We're not going to do that tonight because it's
I was like, holy
8:30.
crap. We went 2.5 hours out of 30.
No, I accidentally set it to autoplay. Normally I don't do that. I think at least I will be back tomorrow and doing Yanetti's because 28 minutes of openings, 36 minutes of opening statements turned into a 2 hour and 24-minute stream. I'm going to start a poll where I am asking, try to be objective. So try not to be, we know we don't like Lally, but was it good points made, could see where he was going, I zoned out, or hard to follow? That's kind of the poll questions I'm asking, because did he make good points if you were a juror who didn't have the knowledge we did? Yeah, I think the cocktail glass on the bumper would make me think, oh, he had it at the bar, now it's on the bumper. It must have been crossed somehow. Alluding to her going back in the direction of 34 Fairview, even though he didn't say she was back there, kind of set up the jury to think. Because remember, this is to tell a story that makes the jury sit and think about what could have happened that day. I think the Aruba was one big mistake. I thought that got into a little bit too much sensationalizing. I don't think that really landed.
Well, he was doing that with everything, though, right? With the niece and nephew, and he was throwing so much information at you that nobody's gonna be able to keep up with that web of whatever the hell he just spun, right? Like nobody's gonna follow that the first time they hear it. I don't care who you are, but you did get enough, right? You got that there was a bunch of people at this house, that Karen Reed was drunk, and that it was her fault. That's what you get, and they're gonna show you here in a minute with all of this actual evidence of glass and reports from the vehicle and phone reports, but it doesn't add up. It doesn't.
No,
they all
and
don't fit together, y'all.
And Brandon, he has some really good takes on both the opening and the closings. And I would have, I agree. I wouldn't have gone the long way around talking about. Of course, I would have mentioned John O'Keefe, and he was a respected, and he was, because it's a good tearjerker that he adopted these kids. But focus on, we have the car, we have evidence showing the car backing. We have him lying where witnesses put the car. She was drunk as hell. We have her drinking 9 drinks at a bar. No one ever saw him at the house. And then she testified the next day, I hit him to multiple witnesses. This is the story I would have gone with. I think would have been more compelling if you had gone around that route instead of doing she could have been in Aruba and someone was hugging someone and someone was mad and the kids will tell you they fought for 20 minutes. Everyone who's been in a relationship have been in that situation and knows that's nothing. Those arguments happen all the time. It depends on how you're feeling. Go to your gym with your significant other and you're just looking to see if the 44s are done and there's some chick in a pair of yoga pants. It's clearly because you want to bang her instead, or you're getting ready to do your donkey kicks and grabs the weight tower and looks up and there's a guy on the other side doing tricep pull downs, and that's clearly because you want to bang him. It just shows she might have been a little bit insecure, and that's why she hooked up with Higgins, to kind of be validated. I'm still hot. I'm still. So I think they try to spin a yarn that they don't need to, and when you, especially when you can't back it up with the evidence, it seems like you're desperate to just talk and say, look over here, as Alan Jackson says during closing arguments. Don't look at the evidence. Look at what we told you in the beginning, and and trying to see if you can fit that square peg into a round hole. I think that's how I see it, or how I would have gone.
Gone what?
I think that's the route I would have gone down.
The route you
I
would
don't
have
know.
So what do you give it? A, B, C, D, or F?
I think I would give it a C.
I was going to say a C as well.
Yeah, because it wasn't the worst I've ever heard.
He got the general idea in the jury's heads, right? Then that's what he really needs to do in an opening. And I don't think he really made too many.
It didn't make too many
Crazy.
mistakes. No.
Right.
I'm probably somewhere around a C, and yeah, I would have taken out all of these people, because why do I need to know about these people?
Right.
It'll make me wonder why is he mentioning these people?
I think he did it on purpose. I really do. I think he intentionally made it as confusing and as incestuous as possible. Because where else have we seen that? Like, where else have we seen somebody literally lay out every single witness and their point of view in the opening statement? That's not how it's done. You tell the story of what's happening, and you mention a couple people, right? Maybe the medical examiner is going to come in here. Maybe this tech guy is going to come in here. You don't go through the guy that sat or drove Ryan Nagel. You don't go through the guy that's in the truck with picking up Ryan Nagel's sister, Julie Nagel, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too much. It's too much.
Yeah, that's way too much information overload. Did he actually say she ran? Karen Reed ran him over. Only that you will find her guilty in vehicular manslaughter. He didn't. I don't think. Did he say she hit him? She said she testified she hit him. It's definitely a C- or a high D. He was material there. He just needed to go half C's with Plevin on an editor who can cross stuff out and rearrange the sentences. Maria says F. Don't stick squares in round holes. He lost me. That's why it's an F. Yes, we are going to stop with Lally because we might have lost it a little bit sometimes.
Oops.
I will give it a B followed by an S. Anime Rumpy, that was not the assignment.
That's good, though. I approve.
Yeah.
Mahalo approves. I like it.
If it was 15 minutes longer, it's a flat out F. At least it was short and had some points. I would say that the length of it is okay. But the thing I would have taken out all of these third-party culprits, because the defense isn't allowed to mention them. And that's why he's mentioning all of these names, because he knows there's a third-party culprit defense coming in. I would have taken out all of these names, and I would have spoken about how they had been fighting that day to set the jury's mind that she was angry. Because there's no explanation other than something happening in Aruba at some point to tell you why she all of a sudden chooses to unalive her boyfriend. No, and you will have no witnesses claiming they were angry at each other. I think it's a really, really, it's mid. It's very mid. He got some evidence in there, and the jury didn't know that, like we did, that most of it is misstatements because it has he can't back it up. He mentioned the Sullivan sisters in opening statement. He thought they were home run witnesses to prove intent. Yeah, but they made no sense that, and everyone who has been in a relationship knows a month and a 20-minute argument. Yeah, that's nothing.
Right.
It's a different animal if you're sitting in the courtroom and he starts talking about Snow Bar, Aruba, a million random people. You're out cold before it gets to the meat of the argument. Yeah, that's the big problem. He does the. I think he's because this is his mentality. It's always look at the jingling keys of all the evidence I'm going to show you. Look at all this evidence. I have all this evidence. But he never tells you on this page is the good page, this is the good page, he just gives you too much, and you're sitting there thinking, am I supposed to write this down? Who's Brian Albert? Was he in Aruba?
It's almost like it's the same style of argument that Plevin's making in his book, from what I understand.
It actually, I think he copied a lot of Lally's arguments into his book. Parts of it reads kind of like these opening statements with the evidence. I think because Plevin is a wonderful grifter, and I love him dearly because no one deserves more than the Smurf to be grifted on. The food stamp 5 camel toes, they should be grifted on. And now there's a new grifter showing up at the scene. And he's going around today attacking everyone on Twitch. It's so fun to see. Jeff or something, I think.
Credit to No Strays Ent. Lolly is not the best when it comes to public speaking. That's one thing we can agree on. Credit to you on that one.
Yeah, good that you can at least you're not one of the fanboys. That's another thing. Plevin says that Yannetti is a bad public speaker. I don't remember that. That's going to be for tomorrow's stream. I'm going to look at if Yannetti is a bad public speaker.
I thought he did okay.
I don't think we rated him highly back then either. I didn't like Alan Jackson's closing. I think I gave that a low. Maybe I would give that a C as well, as I remember it today. I don't think he was as good as.
He missed a lot. He got rushed. He got caught behind in time and had to skip over some stuff. And then
but that's a him problem. He knew the time limit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You said it was A minus. That's how we got here. Did I say A minus?
I don't remember. How am I supposed to remember?
How should I? I can't remember what I got for breakfast. Well, I eat the same every day, so I kind of know. But no, I don't know if you have time to join me tomorrow, but I need to go over because I can't do it tonight.
Probably. Ms. Valhalla has the day off tomorrow, but I think I'll be okay for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we can do Friday beer with Brandon.
Yeah. I like this idea already. Hot
Did
dog.
I give Yannetti an A minus?
Maybe.
I
don't remember. I don't
Well,
think
I'm going to find out tomorrow if I'll keep it at an A minus.
Knowing what we know now.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's end the poll and then find somewhere to redirect you. Is your code stream up?
It is. It is up.
Okay. I'll redirect to that.
I appreciate it, brother.
Try to be objective. How was state opening? I zoned out 65%. Hard to follow 26%. Good points made 6%. Could see where he was going 2%. 49 votes. That wasn't a lot of votes. Come on now. We are 89 people here. I truly believe the time limit on closing arguments were insane. However, listening to Lally live on hour was brutal. It's a them problem. They know the time limit. They should just they have to be better at because you also have a jury there. You sit at home. You can get your pee breaks. You can get your go get a drink. You can go on Twitch. What the jury has to sit for an hour.
Not doing anything.
Try putting you in their place and you just put on the closing arguments and sit in a chair that's probably hella uncomfortable. And just sit there and you can't do anything. You can't make faces. You can't, when Lally says anything, just sit there for an hour. And I am of the belief that you can wrap up a case in 30 minutes, maximum 45 minutes. No closing arguments in history should be, especially with these simple charges that this is, no case should go over 45 minutes for closing. That's my hard belief. I have never, ever been in a case in Denmark where we had closing arguments that lasted more than half an hour.
I don't think I disagree with you. I think 45 minutes, you should be able to summarize your case in chief or your defense. That seems reasonable to me.
And you need to you need to remember, how was it for you when you went to school? In Denmark, every class is 45 minutes long.
I think ours were roughly like 50 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, remember how long that was? A teacher could get around a lot of stuff. But sadly, lawyers have had that, you can just roam free. And they shouldn't. Because just like Lally, you'll get to tell too much of a story because you think, I have 2 hours. I will put in 5 different stories. No, if you have an hour, prepare for 45 minutes. The jury will thank you for it. Brendan says, I don't think anyone remembers. That's why it's worth a revisit instead of deleting 12 beer and trying to fight an entire football team. Well, no one says we can't do both.
Exactly. It's the day's young. The day is young. I believe we are doing a go walk today, y'all. And I think I'm going to try to bring Dottie, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Or we might give it a try. It's going to be chaotic. It always is.
I'm not allowed to have animals at my address. Closing should be evidence, so they are forced to stick to the facts. Then I'll do you one better. They shouldn't be allowed to do closings. The jury is the finder of the facts. They have listened to every witness. They don't need anyone to interpret what they just listened to.
I don't know if I like that one. I don't know if I like that one for the simple reason
put on an understandable case.
But then the defense doesn't have the opportunity, right? So
why should they have? They can put on their case.
But that would require them to prove innocence.
No, because it's not evidence when he says she's innocent. That's not evidence. That's just his interpretation of the case. We are giving the jury the absolute power of determining people's life, and then we say, we give you 8-10 weeks of a trial, but you're too stupid to understand what you just sat through. Let me interpret it from both the prosecutor and the defense angle. You can stand up and you can say, I believe that I proved manslaughter by this. I believe I proved OUI by this, and I believe I proved leaving the scene of a crime with this. Only factual related to the charges. All of this, and then you remember John came in and he peed on the floor, and then we had Brian Higgins. He was such a nice guy, and all of this spinning a tale. If they could stand up and say, in this case, there's 3 charges. I'll begin with number 1 and why I believe I proved it. Karen Reed was in the vehicle. That vehicle struck John O'Keefe. We have the photos you saw. You can go back and check them out. We have Scoribello, who, even though she said it's not consistent with every car hit, it could be. And you have no evidence anyone else was at the scene. The only logical conclusion is Karen Reed must have hit John O'Keefe, and you have all the taillights found later. 2, OUI, we have the blood samples proving that Karen Reed was under the influence while operating the vehicle. That same vehicle was the one that unalived John O'Keefe. We have witness testimony. She was behind the wheel of the car by Julie Nagel, Ryan Nagel, and Moxley, or whatever his name is. We have the injuries to the back of the truck. And the last one, leaving the scene, John O'Keefe passed away in the snow alone after Karen Reed drove home. You don't have to go in and tell a story about, and then you had Jen coming in, and then you had someone mentioned a dog, and it's been such a long trial, and I feel so sorry for you. Tell me what you proved. Not all of this.
I mean, that's essentially what a closing should be, right? Like that's
exactly, but it's not what it is.
No, not here anyway. Not in Norfolk. Or wherever it is. I know, whatever. I got the wrong one. It's not Norfolk. It's whatever the...
Dayton? No.
So, yeah, no, I don't know.
Denim.
Dedham. That's what it is. Dedham.
Yeah, but this is what closing should be. Closing should be, I proved my case, they didn't prove their case. It shouldn't be telling a story. That's not what closings are for. That's not what they originally were as intended. It is because what a case is about is proving the charges brought against you. And you should, when you go back as a juror, read the first one. It says second degree. That means she must have had forethought. Did we prove that? Yes, they were in a fight in Aruba, and that's why we believe she was angry at him. Then the defense can go up and say, there's no one who backs up the claim that she had any intention of doing this. They actually said absolutely the opposite. But in American court, you go so far away and you lose people when you do it. Nothing sticks after 45 minutes. Every single examination of people has shown that you lose the ability to concentrate after 45 minutes. That's why school lessons is the length of this. And actually, since TikTok and social media, it has gone down.
That's interesting.
3 things. If there is no cover-up, why remodel the basement? We have no evidence that they remodeled the basement. It wasn't brought into trial. Why get rid of the dog? That's one of the good questions. Where is all the blood from that gash? And bonus, why no bruises on his arm as he hit him? Yeah, all of these is points we have made, except that no one has brought any evidence so far of the remodeling. And again, we go by what's presented in court, not what isn't in court. And no one has proven that, so that's why I don't put much into it. I know everyone as well. They have a carpet somewhere. It's not tested. It's not going to be evidence, so it doesn't matter. Well, the jury didn't understand because Bev's instruction, they had no idea about reasonable doubt in, like Ronnie said, too many distractors. And that's why you don't talk for an hour without spending, if you're going to talk an hour, spend 15 minutes about what, if any, is reasonable doubt. Because that's on the defense. That's one of the criticisms we have to do on the defense. I like the team, I like the lawyers, but they didn't dress the jury to do the right decision. And that's a big problem. They have to do better this time around. We know they didn't buy the third-party culprit defense. I would, and I said it when we started talking about it, I wouldn't have spent as much time about who else could have done it. I would have focused 100%, no evidence of a collision with a car. I would never, ever have spent time about anything else. You don't have to point the finger of Colin or Brian Higgins or Brian Albert. You just have to prove that she didn't hit him with a car. I heard Val was genetically engineered a goat boy on a private island. Yes, it was called Dr. Monroe's Island. Have you watched that movie?
Yeah, back in the day.
That was a
It's an old
horrible
one.
movie.
It wasn't good.
Apparently, it was one of the worst productions ever in history.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's the one with Marlon Brandon where he barely does anything.
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brandon, yeah, sorry.
Why do you keep saying Brandon? Marlon Brando.
Yeah, it's because we have Brandon here. And he repeats it in your chat as well. Thank you for supporting.
By the way, I like the way you spelled herd there, Squad Bob. I dig it. I heard Val was genetically engineering a goat boy on a private island. You heard it incorrectly. We are training a herd of goats to fight the cartels. That's what we're doing here.
I have a horrible feeling this trial could end up being longer even without the trip to Aruba. Anyone who mixes something up is going to be handed a transcript. Yeah, it's going to be... I will go to Knoxville while this case is on.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
always go again. It's not a lot that you can learn from a certain group of people who really figured some things out in the 30s. But they had a guy who said, whenever you talk to the dumbest person in the room, then the smartest person will understand you. Talk to the smartest person in the room, and the rest of the room won't understand you. And this is how you do marketing. Why do you think that, what was that company who sold burgers with Nina Agdal and Upton and all of the hot chicks? Because they know men like hot chicks and will take someone to, I don't know what restaurant it was, but because we like watching hot chicks.
Schmecks sells.
Yeah, and it's basic. And you don't have to do much. You just have to have the titlets kind of being seen, and we will say, I like it. I'll let my daughter know to stay indoors with the house locked up when Baker goes there. I'm going to be fine. Then Marissa and you can work my sub count down to a 0. No, Marissa did great the last time around. It's Marissa and Jamie, because then if I'm not here and Val isn't here, Jamie's going to be here. I haven't discussed this with Val yet, but Mo is also looking to get back in on the action like last time.
We talked about that a little bit the other day, I think.
Did we talk about it the last a couple days ago? Oh,
I think so. I think we did.
So it could be more than double trouble.
It's going to be a team effort, yo. It's going to be a team effort.
See? Oh, no, Val. Jamie's back.
I don't know what I did, Jamie. I don't know what I did.
Do you know the worst thing?
Stop
Because of
hating.
all that animosity, and I feel sorry because I miss Jamie. I made her a gift, and she still haven't come on.
Jamie!
I promised her.
It's
to
one
her,
thing
but
mad at me, but don't take it out on Baker. Don't take it
she's
out on
mean.
Baker.
He's so mean. Marissa kept talking how she should host the show and hope Baker never came back. No. Marissa, you have the access code. You just do it. Jamie said she was free for the stream tomorrow, thankful. Well, we have to figure out what time to do it. I don't know what, because when Mrs. Waller is home, you give me a time, brother, and I'll set it up.
Sounds good.
I'm a little terrified, Karen. I'm going to be gone for a week. Relax now. It's not like I'm going to be gone for the entire trial.
And even on the days when he's not, I'll probably pop in those days.
Yeah,
I'm at home. It's easy for
the
me.
expert doesn't get out of bed till 5 o'clock. I will be sitting on the porch and oh, sorry, not the porch, the lanai, and check in. Maybe if I have to rent that stupid car so I can go around and do some stuff. I did. Oh, yeah, I was away when Jen McCabe was on.
Ugh. Ugh.
Whoa. Brandon.
I'm getting hungry, my man. I'm
Yeah,
getting hungry.
we will figure out a time zone tomorrow. Time zone. It's going to be in every time zone. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll do the defense opening statement and see where it takes us from there. And maybe then Sunday we can do the closings or something, or I can do them because Saturday I have a birthday in the family.
Okay.
Every witness when they cross, how does this show John was hit by a vehicle? You can't ask every witness of that because it'll be outside of the scope. Most witnesses will have no knowledge. So there are rules how you can ask people. What time did he say? I said at some time. Because Valhalla needs to talk to the missus and figure out when we can play.
Yes. I got to make sure all my chores are done before I can play with my internet friends.
Anyone else spend their morning debating international politics with Nick Stour on X? No, just me. First, stay away from politics. 2, stay away from Swedes. That's just good life lessons.
Good advice to take with you going forward.
Am I going back to reading now? No, I'll go to bed early tonight, and I'll probably do a Baker at night streaming again tomorrow night. Tonight my morning, and ramble on about nothing. See, Brandon, your Swayze's back, and we'll figure out when to stream tomorrow at some time when Valhalla gets to talk to the missus.
Yes.
All y'all, thank y'all for showing up. And someone is hi, Swayze.
Ooh.
Go over and show Valhalla a little bit of love. We are trying to get him to 6,000 subscribers. 6,000 subscribers.
That sounds
So
crazy.
if we could get there, it could be COOL. And talking about see you tomorrow. Look what I did.
Later, y'all.
I'm so smart.
What exhibit are you referring to?
I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor.
All right.
100.
100.
It is 100%
100%.
correct.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't have cared?
No,
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
no,
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
probably did. Everybody has.
So there.
Everybody has.